بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم نحمده ونصلي ونسلم على رسوله الكريم أما بعد. We get started inshallah. Before we start, it's a caveat. The study of the supernatural is always a subject that's tainted with a lot of myth, a lot of fabrications. So our objective here today is to make an attempt to present this narrative from the Quranic and the prophetic perspective. And this is an extremely broad subject matter. So we're going to go into some detail inshallah. So bear with me. I would advise you to make notes. If you have your mobile, if you have some sort of notepad, pen, etc. Make some notes inshallah. And then share these notes with me afterwards inshallah. I want to see some of the notes that are made either by email, Twitter, or you can share it with me inshallah. So let's begin where every discussion on Shaytan would start. It begins with the jinn. The linguistic word jinn stems from the root letters of Jannah, Yajunnu, Jim and Noon. And this refers to the arrival of the night. You know, when darkness spreads, it gets dark, things are concealed from the human eye. And so the two letters, they imply, Jannah, it means when something is hidden, the concealing of something. Allah uses this in the story of Ibrahim alayhi salam. فَلَمَّا جَنَّ عَلَيْهِ اللَّيْلُ رَأَى كَوْكَبًا. When it became dark, Ibrahim saw the stars. So that's Jannah. You notice in Arabic, the embryo in the Arabic language is also referred to as the janeen. Janeen, which has Jim and Noon inside, because the embryo is hidden. The contents of the embryo are hidden and it's unknown without external investigation. Even the word we use for a garden or paradise, which is Jannah, is the type of garden that's enclosed with a wall or barriers. It's not accessible. You can't see the inhabitants that are inside, so they are also hidden unless you have a key or access. And interestingly, the Jannah of the next world is also hidden, and access is only granted to certain individuals on the basis of faith and good deeds. And so the word for a shield in Arabic is also Junnah. Junnah is something we hide behind, we conceal ourselves behind from the blows and the attacks of the enemy. It's used in the Quran, اتَّخَذُوا أَيْمَانَهُمْ جُنَّةً. They would use their promises and their oaths as a kind of defense to try and get away with things. The word for insanity or madness in the Arabic language is also jinnah or junoon, because the intellect has a cover over it. And so that the faculties of thought are hidden away, they are concealed. And so the disbelievers would use this word about the Prophet ﷺ. Allah mentions in the Quran, إِنْ هُوَ إِلَّا رَجُلٌ بِهِ جِنَّةٌ. And Muhammad ﷺ, he's just a person who's got junoon, jinnah. That's what they would say. And so the root letters of Jim and Noon have an intrinsic nuance and a meaning, which is for something to be hidden. And that explains the root letters used for the word jinn. Because the jinn are a species that are hidden from our view. Now, let's head into the first question of the afternoon, which begins from the creation and the existence of the jinn. When were they created? When we know explicitly from the Quran that the jinn were created prior to the creation of Adam alayhi salam. Allah mentions, وَلَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ مِنْ صَلْصَالٍ مِنْ حَمَإٍ مَسْنُونٍ. Allah talks about the creation of the human being. And Allah says that we made the human being from a type of clay. وَالْجَانَّ, and the jinn, خَلَقْنَاهُمْ مِنْ قَبْلُ. We created them even before the human being. And so Allah mentions here that prior to the creation of the human being, the jinn were created. So we don't know a fixed date, a specific date, but we know that jinn existed before human beings. Okay, no problem. Second question. What are they made up of? What is the jinn made up of? And you'll notice there's an overlap with some of the jinn discussions and the shaytan discussions. To understand shaytan, we have to understand jinn. So the second question, what is their construct? What are they made up of? Well, many of us are well aware that they are made from fire. But do we have any details of this fire from the Quran, from the Sunnah? The Quran uses two descriptions of this fire. In Surah Rahman, Allah mentions, وَخَلَقَ الْجَانَّ مِنْ مَارِجٍ مِنْ نَارٍ. We created the jinn from a marij of fire. Maraja in Arabic is when you combine something. You mix two things, three things, you mix a few things together. Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu mentions, and the marriage of the fire is actually the tip of the fire, the tip of the flame, where sometimes you'll get different colors, sometimes orange, sometimes red, sometimes yellow. So it's the flickering part of the flame which is of different colors. And so marriage is a mixture of flames, a mixture of colors. Just as as the human being is created in a mixture of colors, the jinn are also created in a mixture of colors. And so Allah says that we created the jinn with a range of different colors of fire. And the second description Allah talks about is in Surah Hijr. Allah says, وَالْجَانَّ, and the jinn, خَلَقْنَاهُ مِنْ قَبْلُ مِنْ نَارِ السَّمُومِ. We created the jinn from Nari Samum, which is a smokeless fire. A fire which doesn't have smoke, it doesn't have ashes, etc. And so these are the two explicit descriptions that we have regarding the jinn. And they are created from a range of colors of fire, and the fire is smokeless. Now remember, we're going to be focusing on the Quranic and the prophetic expansion of these ideas. We're not going to be speculating and producing new theories. The third question. Okay, look. Humans live on earth, angels exist in the heavens, but where were the jinn? Where would they have their residence? So we find from the implicit indications of the Quran, not explicit, implicit, that they were living on the earth. Allah mentions, وَإِذْ قَالَ رَبُّكَ لِلْمَلَائِكَةِ, when Allah said to the angels, إِنِّي جَاعِلٌ فِي الْأَرْضِ خَلِيفَةً, I'm going to create a human being. I'm going to create humans. What did the angels say? أَتَجْعَلُ فِيهَا مَنْ يُفْسِدُ فِيهَا وَيَسْفِكُ الدِّمَاءَ. First of all, what's the first thing we learn? The earth was already in existence before Adam a.s. was created. If Allah is saying, I'm going to place a human being on the earth already exists. The second thing we understand, أَتَجْعَلُ فِيهَا, the response of the angels was, you're going to create somebody who's going to shed blood, and somebody who's going to cause all sorts of rebellion and corruption and chaos on the earth. Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu and other scholars of tafsir or exegesis, they expand on this verse and they say the angels had previous experience after watching the jinn causing chaos and bloodshed on the earth, and so that's why they asked Allah that you're going to create a human being on top of the jinn. You've got jinn already causing havoc, and now you want human beings as well. And so implicitly we learn from the Quran and the explanations from Ibn Abbas, etc., and the jinn were existing and living on the earth. And so we know that the jinn existed before the creation of the human being. We also know that they are hidden from us, and they are made from a smokeless fire, which is somewhat colorful in nature. And we also know they inhabited the earth and resided therein. Question number 4. Can we see the jinn? I don't think we need to really touch on this. But the majority of scholars are unanimous on the idea that the default setting is that we cannot see them in their original and default form. Allah is explicit on this in Surah Al-A'raf. He says, إِنَّهُ يَرَاكُمْ وَهُوَ قَبِيلُهُ. So إِنَّهُ يَرَاكُمْ هُوَ وَقَبِيلُهُ مِنْ حَيْثُ لَا تَرَوْنَهُمْ. Allah's talking about Iblis. And he says, his little minions, his little tribe that he has, وَقَبِيلُهُ, him and his little minions that follow him, they see you, يَرَاكُمْ, they see you, مِنْ حَيْثُ لَا تَرَوْنَهُمْ. However, you don't see them. You don't see them. However, so we can't see them in their original form. However, the jinn can be seen by humans if they take on a form that is other than their default form. For example, if they take on the form of a human being, or if they take on the form of an animal, what's the evidence for this? Who knows? Any hadith that you know of where a jinn came in the form of a human being? Somebody shout it out. No? Hadith al-Bukhari? Okay. During the month of Ramadan, tough crowd. During the month of Ramadan, Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu was placed in charge of the zakat fund. Hadith al-Bukhari. Abu Hurairah is in charge of the zakat fund. For 3 nights, he catches a person who's stealing from the zakat fund. Each time he grips them, and a conversation takes place between them. And he lets the person go with the condition, look, you don't come back tomorrow. I don't want to see you again tomorrow. Maybe you go this time, but don't come back. He made an excuse. I'm not feeling, I've got family, I've got this to take care of. It happens for 3 nights. After the 3rd night of the same occurrence, Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu said, that's it. I'm taking you to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That's enough. Enough is enough. So suddenly this man goes, look. I'll teach you something. If I teach you something, you let me know, and it will benefit you. So Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu said, go on. He's with Sahaba, they were always interested in learning. He said, go on, what are you going to teach me? So he said, look, إِذَا أَوَيْتَ إِلَى فِرَاشِكَ. Just before you go to bed, فَقْرَأْ آيَةَ الْكُرْسِي. Read Ayat al-Kursi, Allahu la ilaha illa huwa al-hayyul qayyum, in Surah Al-Baqarah, 3rd juz. So you read Ayat al-Kursi. Hatta taqtim al-ayah, you read the entire Ayat al-Kursi. فَإِنَّكَ لَنْ يَزَالَ عَلَيْكَ مِنَ اللَّهِ حَافِظٌ. That entire night, Allah will place somebody who will protect you and who will be a guardian for you. وَلَا يَقْرَبَنَّكَ شَيْطَانٌ. No shaitan, no devil will come near you حَتَّى تُصْبِحَ, until the morning. Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu lets him go.
The next morning he comes to the Prophet ﷺ. Hadith al-Bukhari, he says, Umar bin Allah, this is what happened. The Prophet ﷺ says, Ama innahu qad sadaqaka. You know that person that you spoke to, he is saying the truth. وَهُوَ كَذُوبٌ. However, he's a consistent liar. He's somebody who lies non-stop. تَعْلَمُ مَنْ تُخَاطِبُ مُنْذُ ثَلَاثَ لَيَالٍ يَا أَبَا هُرَيْرَةَ وَأَبُو هُرَيْرَةَ. Do you know who you've been speaking to for the last 3 nights? قال لا. I have no idea. ذَاكَ شَيْطَانِ. That was Shaytan. What do we learn? Shaytan can come in the form of a human being, and we can interact. The Prophet ﷺ has interacted with jinn, and the companions also interacted. So you can have interactions, but they would be in their human form, or they would be in an animal form, or they would be in a different form. And we'll come to that. There are a number of other incidents as well, from the life of the Prophet ﷺ, from the life of the Sahaba, etc., that also add evidence to this opinion. And so the correct understanding here is, only the prophets can see the jinn in their original and default form. Now there's a discussion of scholars, what is the default form? And I've left that discussion out. Because it's a lot of speculation. Is it this? Is it that? Some say it's energy, some say it's this. So we leave it at that. Allahu A'lam, Allah knows best. Why speculate? As for me and you, that's for the prophets. They can see the original default form. As for me and you, we can only see the jinn if they appear in a form other than their default form. Other than that would be in a human form or animal form, etc. As a hadith Imam Muslim narrates, where a jinn appeared in the form of a snake. So different narrations that exist. Allama ibn Taymiyyah rahmatullah also expands on this. And he says in quite some detail in his Majmu' al-Fatawa, which he talks about the different forms and all of these things, if you wish to take a look there. So can we see? Yes, we can, but with the condition that it's not in the original form. Question number 5. How similar are the jinn to us? Do they eat, drink, have sexual interactions, all of these things? There's a hadith of Muslim, Jabir radiallahu anhu narrates from the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he says, لا تأكلوا بالشمال. Do not eat with the left hand, فإن الشيطان يأكل بالشمال. Shaytan eats with the left hand. What do we learn? Does the devil eat? Do the jinn eat? Yes, they do. So they do eat. It's another narration, same by Jabir radiallahu anhu, Muslim, وإذا لم يذكر الله تعالى عند طعامه. At the time of food, if you don't take the name of Allah, you don't say Bismillah, then the jinn will come and say, أَدْرَكْتُمُ الْمَبِيتَ وَالْعَشَاء. أَدْرَكْتُمُ الْمَبِيتَ. You've now got a place to sleep, you've now got a place to eat. So they do rest, they do take rest, and they do eat just like us, hadith al-Muslim. And so they eat, they drink, they even have children and engage in intimacy. In Surah Rahman, Allah mentions, لَمْ يَطْمِثْهُنَّ إِنسٌ قَبْلَهُمْ وَلَا جَانٌ. Neither humans nor jinn. Allah's talking about paradise, Allah's talking about Jannah. And He's talking about the hur of Jannah, the women of Jannah. And you can ask a question at the end about women of Jannah, men of Jannah, that kind of thing. But focus on this. لَمْ يَطْمِثْهُنَّ إِنسٌ قَبْلَهُمْ وَلَا جَانٌ. Neither humans nor jinn have ever been intimate with the hur of Jannah. What does that mean? That means humans can have intimate interactions, jinn can also have intimate interactions. And so they also engage in acts of intimacy, and they have children. We find in Surah Kahf, أَفَتَتَّخِذُونَهُ وَذُرِّيَّتَهُ أَوْلِيَاءَ. Are you making Shaytan Iblis and ذُرِّيَّتَهُ, his children, his progeny, أَوْلِيَاء, your friends, مِن دُونِي, as opposed to Allah? وَهُمْ لَكُمْ عَدُوٌّ, they're your enemy. What do we learn? They have children, ذُرِّيَّة. And so we learn that they have many similarities like this. And what's the reasons I'm mentioning this? You see, when you are armed with knowledge of these kind of things, you are less scared. One of the biggest reasons we have this huge fear of jinn is because we can't see them. And look, I'll give you a very simple example. Why are we scared of the dark? It's because it's fear of ignorance. You don't know what's in the dark. If you switch the light on, it's okay. Switch the light off, you're like, oh, there's something there. You just switch the light on, there was nothing there. Now you switch it off, it's suddenly there. The fear comes from lack of knowledge. You don't know what is there. If we understand that the jinn are a creation just like us, yes, there are peripheries, just like amongst us. There's the odd person who's a nutter. There's an odd person who's slightly different. That's a discussion that we'll have, and we'll look at that. But generally speaking, the jinn are very similar to us. They have their own lives. They're not following you around. They've got their own lives to live. They've got work to go to. They've got these kind of things to do. And so we have to understand these ideas. Question number 6. This is quite an important question. Scholars spend quite a lot of time on this. Do the jinn have prophets amongst them? Because Allah mentioned in the Quran, وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. And the jinn and the human have been created for the exclusive worship of Allah. That means that there is Jannah for the jinn, there is hell for the jinn. Because if they have to obey Allah, and they will be held accountable, and they will have Yawm al-Qiyamah, and they will also have and the scholars go into discussions. So okay, what's the fiqh of the jinns like? Because if you're made out of fire and you're making wudu, you're extinguishing yourself. Like these kind of discussions the scholars have, which we're not going to get into, but it's for example, if they're made out of fire, then you're burning the fire, how are they going to have punishment? So all of these discussions the scholars have, but a key question that comes prior to all of that, do the jinn have prophets amongst them? The majority of scholars are of the opinion that the prophets were only from the human beings. In Surah Nahl we find, وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَا مِنْ قَبْلِكَ إِلَّا رِجَالًا نُوحِي إِلَيْهِمْ. And we have not sent prior to you, إِلَّا رِجَالًا, any prophet or Muhammad ﷺ, except that they were men, meaning from the human beings. And so Ibn Abbas adds that yes, the prophets and the messengers are only human. The prophets and the messengers are only human. However, the jinn have amongst them a third category known as al-nadhir, warners. They would pass on the message from the prophets and the messengers. Where's the evidence? It comes in the Quran. وَإِذْ صَرَّفْنَا إِلَيْكَ نَفَرًا مِنَ الْجِنِّ. O Muhammad, we sent a group of jinn towards you. يَسْتَمِعُونَ الْقُرْآنِ, they were listening to the Quran. فَلَمَّا حَضَرُوهُ أَنْ once they were present listening to the Quran, they said to one another, Ansitu, listen to these words, listen to the Quran. فَلَمَّا قُضِيَ, once the recitation was finished, and we'll touch on this incident, when the recitation was finished, وَلَّوْا, these jinn, they returned to their people, إِلَىٰ قَوْمِهِمْ مُنْذِرِينَ, and they were warners. And so just as you have Rasul, you have Nabi, from amongst the jinn you have Mundhireen, they're those who warn. And so they take the message from the prophets and they disseminate it amongst their people. And so their religion is the same as the prophets and the messengers that were sent to humans. They have the same creed, they have the same beliefs, the same aqidah, but the fiqh of the scholars discuss is slightly different. And the Prophet ﷺ taught it to them during the night of the jinn. And that's our next discussion. And Laylatul Jinn, etc. And that's what we'll take a look at. There's other discussions. Who is the better creation, from the jinn and the human beings? All of these things. We can touch on this at the very end if there's time, inshallah. We'll touch on it there. Now, so that's some details regarding the jinn from the Quran and the Sunnah that we've explored. We're now going to shift over to the night of the jinn, which is it's in the hadith literature. It's known Hadithu Laylatul Jinn. So it's a very famous, you have Hadith of Jibreel. So the Hadith of Jibreel, what was the Hadith of Jibreel? When Jibreel came and sat in front of the Prophet ﷺ, he asked a number of questions. He looked like a person who just come from somewhere, a traveler, and he asked him 3 questions. What is Islam? What is Ihsan? So famous Hadith are given certain names. So Hadith of Jibreel is that one. This is Hadith of Laylatul Jinn. An incident occurred in the life of the Prophet ﷺ where he visited the jinn. And he spent an entire night educating them regarding Islam. This occurred as he was returning from Ta'if. You may have heard the incident of Ta'if where he gave da'wah to the people. This was very early Islam, very early Islam. He goes to the people of Ta'if and he tries to give them the da'wah of Islam. They reject him. Not only do they reject him, they're pelting him with stones, kicking him out. And the Prophet ﷺ is bleeding quite profusely. So one of the worst incidents in hadith literature, when the Prophet ﷺ is asked what was the, Aisha radiallahu anha asks him, what was the worst incident in your life? He mentions Ta'if. Ta'if was the worst incident in the life of the Prophet ﷺ, which many of us have studied in the Seerah. So that night, as he's returning from Ta'if, he camps outside, on the outskirts of Makkah. He sets up camp. And he stood in tahajjud, and he began reciting the Quran. And that's the verses Allah talks about in Surah Al-Ahqaf, which I just mentioned. وَإِذْ صَرَّفْنَا. Allah, whilst the Prophet ﷺ is in his tahajjud, just think about this for a second. The Prophet ﷺ travels to Ta'if. Imagine how intense it was to be in those days to travel in the heat. He gets absolutely battered in Ta'if. Like subhanAllah, just think about this. Somebody who's extremely, they compare the Prophet ﷺ to like a candle. Well, how does a candle give off light? It has to burn itself. The Prophet ﷺ would literally burn himself for the sake of people so that they don't have to burn in the next world. So the Prophet ﷺ has gone to Ta'if, absolutely bruised. He comes back bleeding, to the extent that he takes shelter quickly in one of the orchards that were nearby. And Addas is a slave, who's a Christian slave. One of the enemies of the Muslims comes and says, this is not right. Not even to our enemies, this shouldn't happen. And then the Prophet ﷺ returns and he's on the outskirts of Makkah. And what would we say? Take a break, relax, rest. and he stands in tahajjud even then. May Allah give us the ability to perform tahajjud. The Prophet ﷺ, he stood in tahajjud, and وَإِذْ صَرَّفْنَا, Allah says, and we caused the jinn to pass by you. وَإِذْ صَرَّفْنَا إِلَيْكَ نَفَرًا مِنَ الْجِنِّ, a group of the jinn. يَسْتَمِعُونَ الْقُرْآنِ. سَمِعَ means to listen. Istama'a is emphasis. Very carefully, attentively listening to the Quran. You'll see that these jinn, they were given guidance. How did they gain guidance? Listening to the Quran. What were they listening to? The tune of the Quran or the actual words of the Quran? Very important. يَسْتَمِعُونَ الْقُرْآنِ, they're listening to the words of the Quran. فَلَمَّا عَذَرُوهُ, I'm not saying you're not allowed to read the tune, yeah? I'm saying do both, best of both. فَلَمَّا عَذَرُوهُ, these jinn are now seeing that there's this person reciting Quran. We've heard poetry, we've heard this, but this is different. Listen, what's going on? The Prophet ﷺ continues his tahajjud, and we know from other ahadith how beautiful the tahajjud of the Prophet ﷺ was, that he would just recite, lost in the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. فَلَمَّا قُضِيَ, when he finishes, وَلَّوْ, these jinn that were present, they accepted Islam. They became not only Muslims, but the impact of the Quran and its recitation, and from the Prophet ﷺ, and they returned transformed, and they returned callers, mundirin, warners to Islam. And so قالوا يا قومنا, they said, they returned to their people. This is the night of the jinn. They returned to their people. يا قومنا, this is from the Quran. يا قومنا, hey, listen guys, it's speaking to all the other jinn. إنا سمعنا كتابا, we have heard a recital, we heard this new thing. أنزل من بعد موسى مصدقا لما بين يديه. It's something that was revealed after Musa alayhi salam, but it affirms what he said. It's like it's different, it's new, but it's saying the same things. It's got some of the same. It's talking about tawheed, monotheism. It's talking about the hereafter. It's got similarities. It affirms what came previously. يهدي إلى الحق, and what it's calling towards is haqq. What we've heard from it. It doesn't sound like it's somebody it's not a quick, somebody trying to make some money over here, or somebody trying to, no, it seems like they're calling towards truth. وإلى طريق المستقيم, and an upright way of life. It really is something we should maybe consider seriously and engage with. Ya qawmana, they're speaking to their people, these mundirin, these jinn. They're saying, listen, ajibu da'i Allah. Respond to this call from Allah. Wa aminu bihi, believe in it. Wa yaghfir lakum min dhunubikum. Allah will forgive you. Wa yujirkum min adhabin alim. And Allah will protect you from a severe torment and punishment. Not only that, but they even responded. Once they were with the Prophet ﷺ, they were responding to the recitation. Hadith of Tirmidhi. Listen to this. Jabir radiallahu anhu says, خرج رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم على أصحابه. The Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم went to the companions the next morning. فقرأ عليهم, sorry, not the next morning. This was a little time later. فقرأ عليهم سورة الرحمن من أولها إلى آخرها. He recited Surah Al-Rahman. Al-Rahman علم القرآن خلق الإنسان. Imagine hearing Surah Al-Rahman from the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم, from Rahman himself, from the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم. And so he's reciting Surah Al-Rahman from the beginning to the end. فسكتوا, and the Sahaba were just listening quietly, attentively. فقال, the Prophet ﷺ said, لَقَدْ قَرَأْتُهَا عَلَى الْجِنِّ لَيْلَةَ الْجِنِّ. I recited Surah Al-Rahman to the jinn on the night of jinn. فَكَانُوا أَحْسَنَ مَرْدُودًا مِنْكُمْ. They responded better than you. كُنْتُ كُلَّمَا أَتَيْتُ عَلَى, every time I would say, فَبِأَيِّ آلَاءِ رَبِّكُمَا تُكَذِّبَانِ. Which of the blessings and the grace of Allah are you going to deem as insignificant, and you're going to ignore and reject? قالوا, the jinn, when they heard every time the verse, فَبِأَيِّ آلَاءِ رَبِّكُمَا تُكَذِّبَانِ فَبِأَيِّ آلَاءِ رَبِّكُمَا تُكَذِّبَانِ. Which of the grace and the blessings of your Lord are you going to reject? They would say, every single jinn would respond, لَا بِشَيْءٍ مِّن نِعْمِكَ رَبَّنَا نُكَذِّبُ فَلَكَ الْحَمْدُ. Allah, we do not reject any of the blessings you have showered upon us, and for you is praise. That's a hadith of Tirmidhi. Imam Muslim narrates that, and this is the key narration which we're concluding on for this surah, this night of the jinn. The discussion, what is the night of the jinn, how do we know about it? Alqama is a student of Ibn Mas'ud. Ibn Mas'ud is a companion, and Alqama is a student. So Alqama, the student, comes to Ibn Mas'ud and says, شهد مع رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم ليلة الجن. Is there any, did you get to go with the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم on the night of the jinn? So Alqama is asking Ibn Mas'ud. So Ibn Mas'ud says, I asked the exact question to the Prophet ﷺ. And so he says that I went to the Prophet ﷺ and I asked him about Laylatul Jinn. فقلت هل شهد أحد منكم مع رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم ليلة الجن؟ قال لا ولكننا كنا مع رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. We were with the Messenger صلى الله عليه وسلم. ذات ليلة one night. And فقدناه, we couldn't find him. Why couldn't they find him? He'd gone to Ta'if, and now he was returning from Ta'if. He was delayed on his way back. He slept on the outskirts of Makkah. So all the companions were like, where's the Prophet ﷺ? We couldn't find him. فَلْتَمَسْنَاهُ Hadith of Muslim. We couldn't find him في الأودية. We couldn't find him in the valleys. وَالشِّعَابِ فَقُلْنَا أُسْتُطِيرًا He's been kidnapped. Somebody's kidnapped him. أَوْ مُغْتِيلًا He's been assassinated. Somebody has quietly assassinated. فَقَالَ فَبِتْنَا بِشَرِّ لَيْلَةٍ بَاتَ بِهَا قَوْمٌ It was the worst night of our lives. We have never spent a night more scared and concerned. فَلَمَّا أَصْبَحْنَا When it was Fajr time, we performed our Fajr. It's now morning. إِذَا هُوَ جَاءٍ مِّن قِبَلِ حِرَاءٍ There was a person coming from the caves, from the mountains. قَالَ فَقُلْنَا يَا رَسُولَ اللَّهِ We went to the Prophet of Allah and the Sahaba, فَقَدْنَاكَ We were looking for you. فَطَلَبْنَاكَ We sent search parties. فَلَمْ نَجِدْكَ We didn't find you anywhere. فَبِتْنَا بِشَرِّ لَيْلَةٍ بَاتَ بِهَا قَوْمٌ It was the worst night of our life. Where were you? So the Prophet ﷺ said, أَتَانِي دَاعِيَ الْجِنِّ A group from amongst the jinn came to me. فَذَهَبْتُ مَعَهُ So I went with them. فَقَرَأْتُ عَلَيْهِمُ الْقُرْآنِ I recited the Qur'an to them. قَالَ فَانْطَلَقَ بِنَا The Prophet ﷺ then took us. In the Mas'ud says he took us and he took them to the place. فَأَرَانَا أَثَارًا He showed us the signs that they were there. أَثَارًا إِيرَانِهِمْ The embers. Embers is, you know, when you light a fire and what's left from the fire, the kind of ashes and all of these things. So the fire that was lit in that place, and the embers, the scorch marks that were present around, وَسَأَلُوهُ الزَّارِ And he says that the jinn were asking some masail, some fiqh rulings. They were asking, you know, now that we have accepted Islam, what do we eat? Because the jinn, they would eat the food of the food of humans, right? And we'll mention that in the hadith. So they're saying now what do we eat? Because now we're Muslim, we don't want to steal, we don't want to do this, so now what do we eat? So the Prophet ﷺ said, لَكُمْ كُلَّ عَظْمٍ ذُكِرَ اسْمُ اللَّهِ عَلَيْهِ For every human that eats something, and there's bones left over, and if they said Bismillah on it, then that is what you will eat. يَقَعُ فِي أَيْدِيكُم As soon as you pick it up, أَوْفَرَ مَا يَكُونُ لَحْمًا It will be filled with meat for you. And so the bones that we eat, so that's why we shouldn't eat bones. Yeah, just in case there's somebody who eats bones. So we say Bismillah, after we finish, we dispose of the bones as normal, and the jinn will then take from that. فَقَالَ رَسُولُ اللَّهِ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمَ said, فَلَا تَسْتَنْجُوا بِهِمَا فَإِنَّهُمَا طَعَامُ إِخْوَانِكُمْ And that's why the Prophet ﷺ taught us that when you go to the bathroom, when you go for the lavatory, when you go to answer the call of nature, you know, you might get some stones, you might get some leaves just to clean yourself with. In those days, we use tissue now and water. But if you were to get some stones, the Prophet ﷺ would say, do not use leftover bones or anything like this, because that becomes the food of the jinn. And so the scholars mentioned that it was in this meeting that the Prophet ﷺ taught them the fiqh that is pertaining to them. And so that is an intermediate, quick study of the jinn and their existence. It's an overview of the key and pertinent themes that are worth understanding in the light of the Quran and Sunnah. Not in too much detail, like the discussions of the jinn, like in the story of Sulaiman alayhi salam, which was recited in the verses before. We're not going to explore that. Now we're going to go on to Iblis and Shaytan himself. We're going to go on to the story of Shaytan. If you have any questions, keep them written down, inshallah. Make a note of them somewhere, and we'll take questions at the end, inshallah. So, let's start with Shaytan, inshallah. It's okay? Not too intense? Okay, good. One of the children. How old are you? 7 years old. Okay, if he's okay, then we're okay. 8. Oh, sorry. 8. So, almost 9. That's what they say. Okay, I'm almost 9. So let's start with the linguistic analysis of his name, the name Iblis. There are 2 opinions. Opinion number 1, and this is the weaker opinion, that it is an Arabic name which stems from the word balasa or ablasa. Ablasa means to have regret or remorse. Allah mentions this word in the Quran, وَيَوْمَ تَقُومُ السَّاعَةِ When the day of judgment will come, the final hour will come, يُبْلِسُ الْمُجْرِمُونَ The sinners will be filled with regret. So يُبْلِسُ, أَبْلَسَ يُبْلِسُ. However, to say that this name is formed from Arabic is grammatically problematic. I'm going to mention something quickly here for those Arabic students. It's known as mamnu' min as-sarf. It can't be formed from balasa. It's a technical idea. That's what I'm going to say. So all I'm going to say is it can't be from Arabic because of the Arabic grammar. Which leads us to the second opinion, which is the stronger opinion, that this word is just a name. It's a proper noun. It's just a normal name. It may have a meaning in the original language, however we are unaware of it. So this was just the name that was given to this specific jinn. And the name Iblis, it's just the personal name of a very specific individual, this person that we're speaking about. There's no Arabic connotations or anything like that. Remember, not all of the prophets spoke Arabic. Not all of the prophets spoke Arabic. There were only 4 prophets who were Arab in the entire Quran. And it was Nuh, Shu'aib, Saleh, and Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. These were the 4 Arab prophets. All the others, Ibrahim alayhi salam, Ismail alayhi salam, Ishaq alayhi salam, all of the other prophets, great prophets, they were non-Arab. And so they would speak whatever language that was the language of that culture, that era. It might have been Aramaic, it might have been, some scholars actually go as far as saying that Musa alayhi salam, his time, which was the New Kingdom, it was actually like hieroglyphics and things like this. So those are discussions that exist. Now, understand, Iblis is a very personal name, it's a specific name of one individual. Shaytan is not a name. Shaytan is actually a description that can be used for anybody. And it comes from the Arabic shatana. Shatana, it means to become distant, to become remote. Somebody who does their own thing. Somebody who paves their own path. I'm not talking like a maverick, that's a good thing. I'm talking this is somebody who does their own thing in a negative way. And this word is used generically for anybody who leads somebody away from Allah. Somebody who makes somebody distant from Allah. It can be used for humans, it can be used for jinn. Shaytan is somebody who makes somebody distant from Allah. Allah mentions this in Surah Baqarah. وَكَذَلِكَ جَعَلْنَا لِكُلِّ نَبِيٍّ عَدُوًّا. We gave enemies to every prophet. شَيَاطِينَ الْإِنسِ وَالْجِنِّ. Certain shayateen, shaytan, from the humans, from the ins and from the jinn. So shaytan is a descriptive word, which means somebody who leads away from Allah. It can be from humans and it can be from jinn. And I'll touch on this, but remember something very, very important. We are extremely concerned about the jinn and the shaytan from the jinn. I tell you, we have much more to worry about the shaytan from the human beings. The human beings cause us much more problems. The people around us causes more problems than even the jinn. And the jinn have their own life, they're busy in their own stuff. The majority of problems that come for us are from the people around us. We'll discuss this at the end, inshallah, when we talk about practical application and stuff like that. So, you have the jinn. Very nice, brief summary. You have the jinn. It's this, like human beings. From the jinn, you have those who lead you away from Allah. What are they called? They are known as? Subject of today's talk? Shaytan. Somebody who leads you away from Allah, Shaytan. Very good, we're getting there. And then you have Iblis, who is the leader of the Shaytan. So Iblis is the leader of all of these Shaytan, and the Shaytan are from the jinn. So you get good jinn, you get bad jinn. Bad jinn are called Shaytan, and the leader of the Shaytan is Iblis. Next question. Was Iblis from amongst the angels or not? What do you mean, was he from the angels? We just had a whole discussion on jinn, and now I'm saying angels. Opinion number 1, and I'm mentioning this because our charity organization is called what? Hope and Knowledge. So we're going to educate ourselves, inshallah. So, opinion number 1. You might be surprised to learn that a very large number of classical scholars, they incline towards the idea that Iblis was from the angels. Look, Ibn Jarir al-Tabari, the great Mufassir, one of the earliest Mufassirun of the Quran, Imam Tabari, he is of this opinion. Imam Baghawi, Imam Qurtubi, amongst other Mufassirin, great Mufassirin say that Iblis was from the angels. Imam Qurtubi actually quotes Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu, the companion, Ibn Mas'ud, Ibn Jurayj, Sa'id ibn Musayyab or Musayyib, both can be said. Qatada, they incline towards the idea, and Imam Qurtubi says, هذا قول أكثر المفسرين. The majority of classical mufassirun are of the opinion that classical exegetes would say that Shaytan is from, Iblis is from the angels. That's opinion number 1, but not the stronger opinion. The second opinion is that Iblis is not from amongst the angels. Rather, he is from the jinn. And that's the opinion of Imam Hassan al-Basri, Imam Razi, Imam Zamakhshari, other scholars, and very contemporary scholars. That's the majority opinion held today. Allama Shanqiti, if you want to write the name down, he has written quite detailed on this. And he pushes the second opinion that Iblis was from the jinn. Now, why is there a difference of opinion? Because it's the verse that we need to understand. Opinion number 1, which seems to say that the majority of classical scholars that Iblis is from the angels, what's their evidence? They present the verse and they say, look, وَإِذْ قُلْنَا لِلْمَلَائِكَةِ, when Allah said to the angels, Usjudu li Adam, prostrate to Adam, فَسَجَدُوا, all of them prostrated, إِلَّا Iblis, except for Iblis. Allah commanded the angels to prostrate. قُلْنَا لِلْمَلَائِكَةِ, we said to the angels prostrate. All of the angels prostrated except Iblis. So what does that verse make you think? All the angels prostrated except for the angel Iblis. That's what it makes you think. It indicates that Iblis is from the angels, right? So Allah commanded all the angels to prostrate. They all prostrated except for Iblis, so he's an angel. So they say he's an angel, fine. The second group comes and says, no. Iblis is from the jinn. And now they go into this discussion. If he is from the jinn, then how do we understand the verse? Allah said to the angels prostrate, and all of the angels except Iblis. How do you explain that? There's a technical response, and I'm going to simplify it, inshallah. Right? If I'm in a room with 10 students, and in this room there is one parent, if I say, can all the students quickly leave, I'm locking the door. There's 10 students and one parent. It's the end of the day. It's 8 p.m. I'm going to lock the door, and the next time I'm going to open it is tomorrow morning. I say, can all the students leave, I'm locking the door. Everybody leaves except for the parent. The parent gets locked in and says, well, you didn't tell me to leave. You told the children to leave. So we'll say this person is foolish, right? We'll say, you have to understand the context. Just because I said students leave, doesn't mean the parent should stay. The parent should have said, well, he's going to lock the door, so maybe I should leave as well. So there's 10 students, one parent, I say, can all the students leave? I'm locking the door now. The parent should think, okay, maybe I should leave as well. So when Allah says, all the angels prostrated except Iblis, it doesn't mean Iblis is an angel. It just means he was present amongst the angels. And in that moment, the rule applied to everybody. And listen, can all the angels prostrate? Means everybody present needs to prostrate. Iblis is present and he is allowed to be amongst the angels. So he needs to behave like the angels. If you're given access, say for example there's all of these VIPs, and then somebody says, here, you can quickly go and you get VIP. Now you're going to act like a VIP, aren't you? They're going to do whatever the VIPs are doing. Free drinks, hey, let me get a drink. You'll act as though you're supposed to be there. So similarly, Iblis should have known that I need to act the way the rest of the angels are acting. If I am put amongst them, then so the group number 2, the ones who say that no, Iblis is from the jinn, they say because he has a higher level of clearance, he has access to the world of angels, he was also included in the instruction of prostration. And so the question is then, is he angel or is he jinn? And so after weighing up the evidences on both sides, the stronger opinion is that he was from the jinn. And I'll present a few verses from the Quran that will make it clear in the hadith. Evidence number 1. Ya ayyuha alladhina amanu, all the ones who believe, Hu anfusakum, save yourself, wa ahlikum nara, from a fire. وَقُودُهَا النَّاسِ, and Allah talks about the fire. And then Allah says, who is in charge of this fire? Malaikatun, angels. غِلَاظٌ شِدَادٌ, these are formidable, intense, scary angels. لَا يَعْصُونَ اللَّهَ مَا أَمَرَهُم, they do not disobey Allah. They do not, in any way do they not disobey Allah. وَيَفْعَلُونَ مَا يُؤْمَرُونَ, and they do whatever they are commanded. Angels do not disobey Allah. If Iblis was an angel, how is he disobeying Allah? Therefore, he's a jinn, he cannot be an angel. Evidence number 2. Allah himself explicitly mentions in the Quran that he's a jinn. فَسَجَدُوا, all of them prostrated, إِلَّا Iblis, except Iblis. كَانَ مِنَ الْجِنِّ, he was from the jinn. فَفَسَقَ عَنْ أَمْرِ رَبِّهِ, Allah mentions explicitly, he was from the jinn. Evidence number 3, and we'll be looking at his story soon, the story of Shaytan and Iblis and all of that. But when Iblis refused to prostrate, he said, أَنَا خَيْرٌ مِنْهُ, I'm better than Adam. خَلَقْتَنِي مِنْ نَارٍ, you created me from fire. وَخَلَقْتَهُ مِنْ طِينٍ, you created him from clay. So if he's saying he created me from fire, which creation is created from fire? If he's an angel, he would have been created from what? He would have been created from light. The hadith of Muslim, Aisha radiallahu anha says, the Prophet said, خُلِقَتِ الْمَلَائِكَةُ مِنْ نُورٍ, the angels were created from light. وَخُلِقَ الْجَانُّ مِنْ مَارِجٍ مِنْ نَارٍ, and the jinn were created from fire. وَخُلِقَ آدَمُ مِمَّا وُصِفَ لَكُمْ, and the human being was created from what you have been informed in the Quran, which is clay. There's a bunch of other evidences, but that will suffice our discussion. So if somebody asks us regarding that verse, and wait a minute, he was from the angels, that means he's an angel, you have an understanding of how to respond. As I can see, you're taking fantastic notes, so inshallah you can refer to your notes, inshallah. Normally it's the sisters that make good notes, and the guys, mashallah, I can see a few in the intros, inshallah. That's good. Second, Fard Kifaya. You know, when i'tikaf takes place in the masjid, only one person has to do it on behalf of the whole community. So there's 1 or 2 people doing it on behalf of the rest of the guys. That's why when I get to senior studies, Quran, Hadith, Fiqh, Tafsir, all of that kind of stuff, with my students, the rule is that it's an open book test. Make as many notes as you want. Whatever notes you have made, you can take into the exam. You can't photocopy somebody else's notes and take them. Whatever notes you've made, you can take into the exam and use that. Because that's the real world. In the real world, when you get asked something, you go and Google. That's the first thing you do. So similarly, that's how I approach that. Ibn Taymiyyah, I'll conclude on Ibn Taymiyyah. His position concludes this whole discussion for us. He says, Iblis was from amongst the angels in terms of his mannerisms, his actions, his level of clearance. So he was amongst the angels according to that. But in terms of his creation and his origins, he was from amongst the jinn. He was an extremely obedient jinn, and so he was granted access to intermingle amongst the angels. Now let's take a look at his story. Okay for time? Shall we do his story? How long do we have before the next first break? 10 minutes. Okay. You can do the thinking now if you want. What do you think?
That's fine. It's up to you. It's up to you.
So we'll continue with the story of Shaytan himself. And I'll just mention a few things, inshallah. So we're going to be going into quite some detail of the verses. Because remember, Allah narrates, Allah very meticulously uses the verses in the Quran. Allah won't go into many, for example, I'll give you an example. Allah doesn't start talking about how to perform salah in the Quran. Because now you find in the hadith, the life of the Prophet ﷺ, Allah in the Quran focuses on guidance. If Allah has taken out an entire chunk to talk about the verses of the Quran, to talk about Shaytan and his entire story, we're going to scrutinize and analyze every single bit of it, inshallah, in some detail. And I'm telling you, the more you study Arabic, the more you study Quran, you will be left in shock and in awe of the precision Allah using His wordings, the way of the miracle of the Quran itself. The miracle of the Quran itself. And I wish I had the time to discuss this. One day, inshallah, we'll do a talk on the miraculous nature of the Quran. But really, it's something else. You'll get an idea, inshallah, once we start going through it, inshallah. We'll be covering some of these discussions. You might have heard your parents, your grandparents say, you shouldn't think too much, it's bad for you. Astaghfirullah. Don't think. You should just follow what you're told. So Allah talks about this in this story, right? We always say, Shaytan, he was thinking too much. He uses logic, he uses brain too much. That's why he messed up. No, that's not actually true. Allah actually wants to think. So we'll be touching on some of these ideas. We'll be touching on, we know we'll be touching on the story of Shaytan. There is also another discussion we're going to be having, is the khutbah of Shaytan. Iblis, Allah actually gives him a khutbah in the Quran. He delivers a khutbah. And an actual pulpit is bought for him and he has a thingy. So we'll be touching on the khutbah, which is from the Quran as well. And then on top of that, we'll be discussing some of the ideas that how does Shaytan play with us. And inshallah, it's we've taken an approach to this which you may possibly not have heard of, not because it's something new, but because it's been organized, inshallah, in a way that will allow you to, other than just saying, when you feel Shaytan coming, you say, A'udhu billahi minash shaytan, everything's okay. No, a more practical approach, how a person can protect themselves against Shaytan. And then we'll also, maybe touch on some of the juicy stuff you all hear for, like possession and all of that kind of stuff, which I know everyone's sad for that kind of stuff, inshallah. But again, keep your questions. I think we will have an opportunity for asking questions, inshallah. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم نحمده ونصلي ونسلم على رسوله الكريم أما بعد. Okay, very good break, inshallah. We're going to need it in this next section. So we're now on to the story of Iblis. Let's take a look, inshallah. So some of the verses, Allah actually in a very organized manner gives us the story of Iblis. وَإِذْ قَالَ رَبُّكَ. Allah says, remember that time. Id means remember that time, meaning we're going to go back in time. قَالَ رَبُّكَ, your Lord said, لِلْمَلَائِكَةِ, to the angels, إِنِّي خَالِقٌ بَشَرًا مِنْ صَلْصَالٍ مِنْ حَمَإٍ مَسْنُونٍ. I'm going to create the human being. Allah said, I'm going to create the human being. فَإِذَا سَوَّيْتُهُ, and once I have proportioned the human being, وَنَفَخْتُ فِيهِ مِنْ رُوحِي, and I will breathe of my created soul into this human being. And in the previous, in the Barzakh series, we discussed what it means by my created soul, when Allah says that. فَقَعُوا لَهُ سَاجِدِينَ, then they will fall down in prostration. So فَسَجَدَ الْمَلَائِكَةُ كُلُّهُمْ أَجْمَعُونَ. Every single one of the angels, they prostrated in entirety. إِلَّا إِبْلِيسَ, except Iblis. أَبَى, he refused أَن يَكُونَ مَعَ السَّاجِدِينَ, to be from those who prostrated. قَالَ, Allah said, يَا إِبْلِيسُ, Iblis, مَا لَكَ أَلَّا تَكُونَ مَعَ السَّاجِدِينَ. What is stopping you from becoming from those who prostrate? Why is it that you aren't prostrating? قَالَ, he said, لَمْ أَكُنْ لِأَسْجُدَ لِبَشَرٍ. I am not somebody who is going to prostrate to a human being. خَلَقْتَهُ مِنْ صَلْصَالٍ مِنْ حَمَإٍ مَسْنُونٍ. You created them from clay, from this black mud, this altered mud. Now, let's pause here and take a look at some of the discussions here. Look, people use this verse and they say you shouldn't use your intellect. You know, look, Shaytan, he said, this is somebody created from clay, clay falls, I am fire, fire rises. Therefore, why should I lower myself to this creation? And so they say that Islam says you shouldn't think. Shaytan used his brain and this is what happened with him. I'm going to mention 3 points here. Number one, first and foremost, he did use his intellect. However, his logic and his intellect was flawed. Ibn al-Qayyim, rahmatullahi, a great scholar, he has discussed this in quite some detail. About 20 different reasons he mentions why his logic and intellect was flawed. One of them is, for example, fire is destructive, whereas clay is constructive. Right? Fire, you unleash it somewhere, it's just absolutely going to destroy and engulf everything. Whereas clay, you can use it to construct things, you can create benefit, you can create something which is useful. And so, that's one example. Another example is, he only acknowledged the clay. But clay is made up of water. The creation of Adam a.s. required water as well, and water is one of the most important elements from all of the elements in existence. And everything that exists is made from water. And so he goes through a number of these reasons why his rationale was flawed, which leads us on to point number 2. Where do we draw the line with using the logic, with thinking, with trying to understand with our rationale? And the simple answer is we stop at revelation. When our brain is convincing us of one thing, like Allah is commanding another thing, that's when we draw the line and say, my intellect cannot compete with wahi. My intellect cannot compete with revelation. Because if I do, what am I saying? I am saying that my intellect can compete with the intellect of Allah. And how can that ever be the case? When Allah Himself has given us the limited intellect that we have. And finally, the third point. Asking questions is actually the solution, not the problem. Listen to this carefully. Iblis was jealous. Iblis is like, why am I going to prostrate to this guy? So he's thinking, why is Allah creating this human guy? Why is Allah creating this human being? Who else was in the heavens that had this question? Who was it? Anybody know? Did the angels not also have this question? The angels, وَإِذْ قَالَ رَبُّكَ لِلْمَلَائِكَةِ, Allah said to the angels, I'm going to create a human being. What did they say? Allah, you're going to create somebody who's going to cause bloodshed? What does that mean? What are they asking? The angels were the first people to ever ask why. They're asking Allah, why are you doing this? You know, today when somebody asks why, we say you shouldn't ask why. Astaghfirullah, brother, don't ask why. Which is one of the most common things youngsters ask today. Why is this? Why is that? The angels were the first people to say, Allah, you're creating somebody in this earth who's going to shed blood, who's going to cause chaos. But how did they ask? Were they brash in their asking? Were they rough? Did they say, how come you're creating a human? No. Very respectful. And they were so careful. They went, وَنَحْنُ نُسَبِّحُ بِحَمْدِكَ وَنُقَدْ Allah, but we are still here to worship you, Allah. We'll still praise you. We'll still glorify you. Allah, we're just asking, why are you creating them? We're here. And then Allah responded. They had a question. They asked the question and their curiosity was quelled. Their curiosity was satisfied with the response that Allah gave them, and it saved them from growing jealous, from harboring ill feelings and allowing them to brew. So there's 2 entities in heaven who had the question. The angels had the question. Iblis had the question. The angels asked Allah, why are you doing this? Allah responded to them. They had their curiosity solved. Iblis didn't ask. We might say today, no, it's piety not to ask. To quietly just push it down. No, because that's exactly what Iblis did. He let it fester within him. He kept it to himself. And when it came down to even then a command of Allah, Allah commanded him and he was unable to conform. So people discuss, where did Iblis go wrong? Some say it was jealousy, some say it was pride and arrogance, but the root of it all was him not being introspective. He should have looked within and thought, you know what, I've got this question, and I can feel this jealousy brewing, and I've got this kind of distaste to Adam, and I can feel this, I need to do something about it. I need to fix this spiritual illness, this spiritual malady. And because he didn't do that, that's where he tripped up. And so sometimes we stop at jealousy, or we stop at this, but we don't go to the root. And the root was the question that should have been asked. He should have said to Allah, Allah, I'm not fully understanding this. Can you explain this? Why are we creating Adam? Why do I have to bow to him? And understanding. And so Allah responded then, Iblis says, why should I prostrate? Allah said, فَخْرُجْ مِنْهَا فَإِنَّكَ رَجِيمٌ. If you're unwilling to abide by the rules that the angels abide by, then فَخْرُجْ مِنْهَا. Leave, you're expelled. فَإِنَّكَ رَجِيمٌ, you're rejected. Rajim is when we say, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. So it's a shaitan, the accursed, or the rejected, the one who's been kicked out. وَإِنَّ عَلَيْكَ اللَّعْنَةَ إِلَى يَوْمِ الدِّينِ. And Allah said that the mercy, my compassion and love and rahmah has been removed from you. عَلَيْكَ اللَّعْنَةَ. What is a curse? La'na is the word they use for curse. And it is a curse on you till the day of judgment. Meaning, you will be devoid from the mercy of Allah till the day of judgment. قَالَ, Iblis turns to Allah and says, رَبِّي فَأَنذِرْنِي إِلَى يَوْمِ يُبْعَثُونَ. Allah, give me a chance. But not a chance to repent. Give me a reprieve until the day of judgment. Give me a little bit of time, Allah. That's all I want. That's all I want. And I'm going to spend time misleading people. Allah, just give me a chance. And we'll discuss at the end. But why did Allah say yes? Why did Allah allow? Why did Allah even have Iblis and Shaytan and all of these things? We'll discuss that. But the scholars mentioned something very powerful here. This is somebody who has disobeyed Allah. And he turns to Allah and makes a dua and asks Allah, does Allah accept or reject? He says, Allah, give me a chance. Give me a chance in the day of judgment. What does Allah say? فَإِنَّكَ مِنَ الْمُنذَرِينَ. I'll give you a chance. If Allah is willing to accept the dua, please, what makes us think He won't accept our dua? If we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what makes you think He won't accept our du'as? Our persistence has to be there. Our sincerity in the dua has to be there. And even if it isn't accepted in this world, Allah will either remove some form of difficulty or accept it for us in the next world. And when it's accepted in the next world, what does that mean? You'll turn up in the court of Allah and what you'll be given for that dua, you'll be like, I wish none of my du'as were accepted. I wish I was just given this. And so Allah says, إِلَى يَوْمِ الْمَعْلُومَ. You have a chance until the day of judgment. قَالَ, and Iblis, with so much pride, رَبِّ بِمَا أَغْوَيْتَنِي. Oh my Lord, بِمَا أَغْوَيْتَنِي. Because you put me in error. أَغْوَيْتَنِي. Allah, you're the one that made me slip up. What do we find about somebody who has this kind of toxic kind of nature? And they put the blame onto somebody else. He makes the mistake. He makes the error and says, Bima aghwaytani, you are the one that put me into error. You're the one that made me slip up. It's your fault, Allah. This idea of not acknowledging errors, not acknowledging the mistake. So he says, because of that, Allah, so you can see that this is somebody who actually has so many hidden maladies and illnesses. Right? You can be this perfect worshipper. And all your friends know that you wake up for tahajjud, and you do this, and you do that, and you attend these lectures, and you dress like this, and all of these things. But from within, there can be a lot of turmoil. There can be a lot of chaos. And so acts of obedience are external, but there's also the internal. And this is what Shaytan and Iblis himself hadn't made an effort on. لَأُزَيِّنَنَّ لَهُمْ فِي الْأَرْضِ. He says, I'm going to beautify this world for them. وَلَأُغْوِيَنَّهُمْ, and I'll make it attractive to them, I'll mislead them. إِلَّا عِبَادَكَ مِنْهُمُ الْمُخْلَصِينَ. Except those who Allah, you grant sincerity to. You have chosen. There are two things that we have to do. And we'll be touching on this at the end. Sunnah and sincerity. Two S's. Sunnah and sincerity. Everything we do according to the Sunnah. And everything we do, it needs sincerity inside. If we have these two, Shaytan doesn't come near us. And Shaytan himself knows, Iblis knows, I can't touch these guys. And so, that's how we conclude. إِنَّ عِبَادِي لَيْسَ لَكَ عَلَيْهِمْ سُلْطَانٌ. Allah says, you have no authority over my worshippers, my servants. إِلَّا مَنِ اتَّبَعَكَ مِنَ الْغَاوِينَ. Except those who willingly follow you. Those who choose to follow you. Iblis, those who will willingly follow you, they will have so you will have some control over them. Now, if we continue in this discussion and we go chronologically, the next interaction, so now we've understood, by the way, just from the Quranic perspective, very briefly, why Shaytan was kicked out of heaven, why he was kicked out. And now the next discussion, chronologically, if we're going in order, would be to talk about Adam and Hawa. But this isn't a discussion on Adam and Hawa, so we're not going to touch on that, purely because that's a different series in and of itself. That would require some time. So that gives us a conclusion of Iblis and how he became Iblis who he became. And we understood some of the nuances, which I will be picking up a little later when it comes to our practical application on what made him get misled and understanding how to approach some of these situations. The next thing that comes is the khutbah of Iblis, this sermon that he will give. And so we fast forward to the end times. After the world has come to an end, when the people of heaven are in heaven and the people of hell are in hell, a sermon will be delivered by Iblis. And Allah has transcribed this sermon for us in the Quran. Why did Allah transcribe this sermon for us? So that we can be protected from hearing this sermon from its source on the Day of Judgment. We don't want to hear it from Iblis, because if any of us are unfortunate enough to hear this sermon in person, that means we are in hell. And so Allah gives us this sermon in the Quran so that we can prepare ourselves and we never have to hear it firsthand. We fulfill the rights of God, we fulfill the rights of Allah, we fulfill the rights of our family members, our friends, our neighbors, our community, whilst in this world. And so the verse is, وَبَرَزُوا لِلَّهِ جَمِيعًا, and everybody will appear before Allah. فَقَالَ الضُّعَفَاءُ وَبَرَزُوا, everyone will be in front of Allah. فَقَالَ الضُّعَفَاءُ, the weak from amongst the people will say, لِلَّذِينَ اسْتَكْبَرُوا, they'll say to the people who are seeking power, meaning it's hell. And the weak meaning the people who are followers. In every group you'll get those who are followers, what we call yes men or yes women, the people who follow and the people who are followed. And so the people who are followers, like, oh yeah, I'm going to follow this, I'm going to do this, is this person saying this, yeah, let's just do this. You just follow the crowd. They will say to the people who they were following, إِنَّا كُنَّا لَكُمْ تَبَعًا, we were your followers. We were just taba'an, like, ittiba'. We were just following you around. فَهَلْ أَنْتُمْ مُغْنُونَ عَنَّا مِنْ عَذَابِ اللَّهِ مِنْ شَيْءٍ. You've got to help us, man. You've got to protect us from the punishment of God. You've got to do something. مِنْ شَيْءٍ, is there not anything you can do? Like, we were only following you. You guys are the ones at fault. Just say something to Allah. Maybe speak to Allah. Petition to Allah on our behalf. Allah protect us all. قَالُوا, they will say, لَوْ هَدَانَ اللَّهُ لَهَدَيْنَاكُمْ. If Allah had guided us, then we would have guided you. What did we notice similar with Shaytan and the people? Blaming. If Allah had guided us, then we would have guided you guys. Still in hell, the blame is being placed on somebody else. Unwilling to accept blame, unwilling to accept responsibility. And if it was God who guided us, then we would have been guided. It's not our fault, if Allah had guided us, then we would have guided you. And so they'll say, إِنَّا كُنَّا تَبَعًا قَالُوا لَوْ هَدَانَ اللَّهُ لَهَدَيْنَاكُمْ سَوَاءٌ عَلَيْنَا. And they'll say, look, it makes no difference. أَجَزِعْنَا أَمْ صَبَرْنَا. Whether we start a petition, whether we rage, whether we start kind of strike and all of these, أَجَزِعْنَا, whether we complain, أَمْ صَبَرْنَا, whether we're patient. مَا لَنَا مِن مَحِيصٍ. There's no escape now. There's no escape. When the followers can no longer blame the leaders, and the leaders absolve themselves of any blame, who will they turn to? They will turn to Iblis. And Iblis will stand and deliver a sermon. يَخْطُبُ is the word Quran uses. And some scholars of tafsir exegesis mention, and a mimbar will be bought. A pulpit will be bought. And he will stand, and the people of hell will listen. وَقَالَ الشَّيْطَانُ, it's in the Quran, Shaytan will say, لَمَّا قُضِيَ الْأَمْرُ, when everything is said and done, إِنَّ اللَّهَ وَعَدَكُمْ وَعْدَ الْحَقِّ, Allah promised you a promise of truth. وَوَعَدْتُكُمْ, I also promised you. فَأَخْلَفْتُكُمْ, however, I have gone against my promise. I have betrayed you. وَمَا كَانَ لِيَ عَلَيْكُمْ مِنْ سُلْطَانٍ, I have absolutely no authority over you. I didn't force you to do anything. I wasn't holding you down and saying you have to do this. I didn't put any sort of threat to you. I didn't have any sultan, I didn't have any authority. إِلَّا أَنْ دَعَوْتُكُمْ, except I invited you. فَاسْتَجَبْتُمْ لِي, and you responded to my invitation. فَلَا تَلُومُونِي وَلُومُوا أَنفُسَكُمْ. Don't blame me. Don't blame me today. لُومُوا أَنفُسَكُمْ, blame yourselves. مَا أَنَا بِمُصْرِخِكُمْ وَمَا أَنْتُمْ بِمُصْرِخِي. I cannot be called to your assistance. إِنِّي كَفَرْتُ بِمَا أَشْرَكْتُمُونِ مِنْ قَبْلِ. I deny any association that you have with me. I have nothing to do with you guys. And in that moment that you will turn to Iblis, all this life Iblis is with us. He says, do this, it's okay, do this, you'll get to it, do this, constantly with us. In that moment where we will turn to him, bro, I can't do anything. You know I can't do anything. Let's be realistic. You know, إِنِّي كَفَرْتُ بِمَا أَشْرَكْتُمُونِ مِنْ قَبْلِ. It's so powerful, the verse in Arabic. إِنِّي كَفَرْتُ. I disbelieve بِمَا أَشْرَكْتُمُونِ, with those things that you ascribe to me. مِنْ قَبْلِ. Meaning, we're saying, you know, I'm going to do this, I'm going to follow my desire, I'm going to do this. All of those things that we said. And أَشْرَكْتُمُونِ is such a powerful term. He's saying the things that you did shirk. Meaning me and you are supposed to worship Allah. But we decide to worship our desires. We decide to worship this. We decide to worship all these other different isms and all of these different things that are around us. Shaytan says, I'm doing kufr of these things. The things that you ascribe to me and the things that you follow, today I make kufr of them. I don't accept that. And so Shaytan himself will wipe his hands. He'll absolve himself of all blame. Iblis is so bitter and consumed by his hatred that he's willing to drag himself down to the pits of hell so long as he can take as many people with him. He's not interested at all about his own being saved himself. He is now at that point where he will drag down anybody he can. You know, one thing is that somebody says to you, look, I'm going to give £5,000 to one of you two. And then he comes to you and says, look, you're not going to get 5k. But if you say, I'll give the 5k to the other person, if you say, nobody gets it. So we're not going to be petty and say, you know what, at least give it to him. At least somebody should get it. So you'll say, let that guy have it. But Iblis is not at that stage. Iblis is at that stage. I'm definitely, and again, can he still make tawbah? Theoretically, he can still make tawbah. The scholars discuss this. In theory, he can still make tawbah. And this is what we need to understand. He is an enemy for us. He is out to take us into hell at no benefit to himself. No benefit to himself. And so that's the conclusion of the khutbah, which leads to a very important question. Why create Iblis? Why would Allah allow Iblis to exist? Why did Allah allow the devil to exist? Ibn al-Qayyim rahmatullah, again, he discusses a large number of reasons in his famous book Shifa'ul Ali. Shifa'ul Ali. You can take a look at it, there's translations that have been made of it. Well, he discusses a large number of the wisdoms for the creation and existence of Iblis. I'll present a few of them today, inshallah. So the question is asked and he responds, فَمِنْهَا أن يكمل لأنبيائه وأوليائه مراتب العبودية لمجاهدة عدو الله وحزبه ومخالفته ومراقمته في الله. He says that look, the reason that Allah has created Iblis, one of the reasons, is Allah can then examine and Allah can assess those individuals who are His close friends and compare them with those individuals who are the enemies of Allah. In essence, as part of a test. Let me give you an example. If I create an exam, I create a test for the students. Do I want my students to pass or to fail? What do I want? I want them to pass. But will I or will I not add hard questions and challenges to distinguish their ability? I'll add hard questions. So wait a minute, you want me to pass, and at the same time you're going to put difficult questions in. Why? Because it's going to allow me to distinguish who has pushed themselves, who has excelled. It allows me to see their ability, it allows me to assess their effort, it allows me to assess all of these things. But I won't push the students beyond what they're capable of. If it's your 3 students, I'm not going to stop putting trigonometry and all of these kind of things in. I'm going to keep it simple. I am going to only put in front of them in a test what they are capable of responding to. لا يكلف الله نفسا إلا وسعها. Allah does not burden any individual in this test with something beyond what they cannot bear. And so the effects of fighting against Iblis leads to the perfection of our worship, which is the second reason. And it allows an individual to perfect their worship. Why? Allah knows that our nature is we are competitive, we are stubborn. And I'll give you an example. You know, when somebody says to us, watch, I'll make sure you fail. There's no chance you're going to beat me. How do we respond? No matter what happens, I'm going to beat this person. We put all our energy into beating this person. Why do you think businesses grow and progress the way they do? Knowing the fact that you have competition. Imagine another shop opens up next door. What are you going to say? You know what, there's another shop next door. Let's close our shop, let's go home. No. You're going to now compete with them. You're going to focus on your marketing. You're going to focus on this. You're going to focus on this. That's how you excel. Competition. This is not only competition though. Competition is when you have an end goal and both the people are going to the end goal. Over here, Iblis is much worse. His end goal isn't Jannah. His end goal is me and you. He's targeting me and you. So how? This is bigger than competition. This is me competing for something and this person is trying to take me out. And so this pushes us to perfect our faith and our worship. Knowing that there is somebody out there who wants us to fail. Knowing that there is somebody out there who wants us to fail. So this pushes us to reach those lofty positions of worship and wouldn't have been able to achieve without much. Next reason. We get the opportunity to analyze the true notable figures of the creations. Look, the most significant figure from a creation perspective from the humans was Adam alayhi salam. This is a really nice point. Pay attention to this. Adam alayhi salam is the figure. When we study human beings in the creation, we study Adam alayhi salam. And when we study jinn, the earliest jinn or the earliest kind of shaytan we know of is Iblis himself. So we study Iblis, shaytan. So they are both kind of the notable figures, the kind of spearhead of both groups. Both of them were tested. And both of them slipped up. Right? And Ibn Qayyim says, جَعَلَهُ عِبْرَةً لِمَنْ خَالَفَ أَمْرَهُ. Iblis is an example of somebody who slips up. خَالَفَ أَمْرَهُ. He rejected Allah. وَتَكَبَّرَ عَنْ طَاعَتِهِ. And he was arrogant against obedience. وَأَصَرَّ عَلَى مَعْصِيَتِهِ. And he was persistent upon his sin. He could have made a mistake and said, you know, I made a mistake. Hands up, Allah, please forgive me. I didn't understand. Please forgive me. He remained persistent on his sin. And so Allah allows us to see Shaytan's story contrasted with Adam alayhi salam. وَجَعَلَ نَبَّأَ بِالْبَشَرِ. The father of creation, meaning the father of humanity, Adam alayhi salam. He made a mistake. And Allah made that as an ibrah. That look, Adam alayhi salam is in heaven. He makes a mistake in heaven, and then we relegate him from heaven and send him to the earth. But what do we learn about Adam alayhi salatu wassalam? Asa, he made a mistake. ثُمَّ تَابَ. Then he made tawbah. وَنَذِبَ. He regretted it. وَرَجَعَ إِلَىٰ رَبِّهِ. And he returned to his Lord. فَابْتَلَى أَبَوَاءَ الْجِنِّ وَالْإِنسِ. Allah tested the father of the jinn and the father of the human beings بِالذَّنْبِ, with mistakes, with error. Both made an error. But what was Allah interested in? The response after the error. And how does Adam alayhi salam respond? And how does Iblis respond? The creation of Iblis allows us to see, and both can be in Jannah. Both can make a mistake. And both can be kicked out of Jannah because of their mistake. However, one can be elevated to the status of prophethood because of their sincere repentance. And one can be sent down to the pits of hell because of their reaction. This is so powerful for us. Allah tested both of them with this. And Allah makes a lesson out of Iblis, and Allah makes a lesson out of Adam alayhi salatu wassalam for us. And so that's another wisdom for us to understand. And Allah warns us with a practical example that this is the end result of somebody who's arrogant and proud. And this is the end result of somebody who's humble and penitent, somebody who repents. And the final wisdom that I'll present before you today, it is also a display of Allah's unique ability and power to create polar opposites. Allah does this throughout the Quran. Allah does this with night and day. Allah does this with the sun and the moon, with the earth and the sky. Allah has done it with paradise and hell, hot and cold, hunger and satiation. Allah does it with Iblis as well. One of the greatest signs of this ability, on one side we have the angels who do nothing but worship Allah. On the other side we have Shaytan, Iblis, who will go out of his way to cause not only disobey Allah, but to cause others to disobey Allah. And you can only appreciate opposites when you have opposites. You can only you only appreciate good food because you have hunger. Like it's when you're really hungry, you only enjoy that cold glass of water or that drink that you have when you're thirsty. The opposites bring color, vibrancy and life into this world of ours. It's opposites that we see. It's only when it's cold and you get into the duvet at night and it's nice and warm in the duvet and it feels good. It's only when it's extremely hot outside that you step into the cold AC controlled room, and you feel cool, that you appreciate the cool. And so similarly, we can only appreciate the good around us if Allah allows there to be the opposite, which is Iblis. Iblis allows us to appreciate, number one, the might of Allah. And Allah allows us to see, just as you don't get confused with night and day, polar opposites. Just as you don't get confused with paradise and hell, polar opposites. How can you get confused with the acts of the angels and and the acts of Shaytan. But there's wisdoms in this, and it allows you to see. It's a very clear-cut line. Allah mentioned, the Prophet also mentioned in the hadith, Al-halalu bayyinun, wal-haramu bayyinun. And the halal is clear and the haram is clear. Allah has made it clear for us. And so it allows us to appreciate and distinguish between right and wrong. And so Ibn Qayyim goes through a large number, and he goes through these different practical implications as well. I'll mention one last one. And this is something which we can apply to our lives, which is what? When I do something wrong, I should take the blame myself. I should take the responsibility. Iblis didn't do that. Imam Muslim rahmatullahi mentions a hadith on the authority of Abu Dharr radiallahu anhu, a great companion. Ya ibadi, O my slaves, innama hiya a'malukum. It is only your deeds, uhsiha lakum, that I record for you. Thumma uwaffikum iyaha, then I will recompense you for your deeds. فَمَنْ وَجَدَ خَيْرًا فَلْيَحْمَدِ اللَّهِ. The one who does good, praise Allah. وَمَنْ وَجَدَ غَيْرَ ذَلِكَ فَلَا يَلُومَنَّ إِلَّا نَفْسَهُ. If you find evil, don't blame anybody but yourself. Allah says that when you make a mistake, learn to blame yourself. However, if somebody else makes a mistake, and you see a fault in somebody else, overlook their fault and blame you, please. It allows you to shift the blame away from your brothers and sisters and say, you know, I have so many sins within me. This person has this one mistake that they made. They made a sin. Maybe Iblis made them mistake. That's not who they are. Make excuses for people around you and blame it on Iblis. It's a practical utility of having Iblis. And it's somebody you can say, this isn't him. He probably slipped up because of Iblis. Overlook it. Or help them. Assist them. But let's not become somebody who targets them and khalas, that's it now. You said astaghfirullah. We learn to use Iblis in this practical benefit as well. Now, hopefully that gives us a good understanding of Shaytan, Iblis, his story. But we haven't been equipped with how to tackle Iblis yet. And that's the next one. How do we tackle Shaytan and how is he going to approach us? Look, first of all, we're talking about defense here. Because this is somebody attacking us, we're talking about defense. We're going to come on to attack in a minute. How do you go on the offense? Like if somebody's on the offense, you're playing football and somebody's on the offense, you first need to go into defense. And once you've now defended, you can now go on the offense. So we need to understand our weaknesses and ourselves first to understand where he's going to attack from. We can then set up some defenses and now we can work on, right, let's go, put him on the back foot now. And so now we're coming to the more practical elements of this discussion. How does one tackle the threats posed by Shaytan? So we have to understand ourselves first. Now, this isn't the discussion on the nafs, but I have to do this. So pay attention. This is probably the first time I'm doing this, where I am expanding on the nafs in this level of detail, and I would say this is pushing now intermediate to advanced level of understanding our nafs, inshallah. Our nafs comprises of three elements. And this is going to be technical, you have to pay attention. And if you understand yourself, you can start working towards tackling these issues. Element number one is the faculty of acquisition. The desire within you to acquire something. The faculty of acquisition. Known as in Arabic, al-quwwatu shahawiyya. You might have heard of the word shahwa. It's to desire something. If I feel hungry, my faculty of acquisition, my al-quwwatu shahawiyya will come into play. And it will try and think, and it will come into play and seek out the options. Okay, do I want to have home food? Do I want takeout? Should I make something? Do I want a snack? Do I want a meal? Your al-quwwatu shahawiyya comes into play. And this faculty is with us from birth. Look, when a baby gets hungry, it also needs to acquire food. How does a baby achieve this? What does the baby do when it's hungry? What does it do? It starts to cry. That is the faculty of acquisition. That's pushing the baby to cry, that I need to acquire something, I need some khair, I need some goodness, so it does that. So first faculty is the faculty of acquisition. The second faculty within the nafs is the faculty of aversion. The desire to avert something, to avert danger. And this in Arabic is known as al-quwwatul ghadabiyya. Al-quwwatul ghadabiyya comes from the word ghadab. Ghadab in Arabic means anger. What's the objective of anger? Anger exists to push something away that is undesirable. I don't like something, you express anger. Now anger might be, you get angry at something, you stand up and walk off. That's your anger making you make that decision. It might be that you react, you say something. It might be that you physically do something. Right? So for example, somebody throws a punch at you. Your quwwat ghadabiyya, your al-quwwatul ghadabiyya, your faculty of aversion comes into play. What do? there's a danger, what do you start thinking? Fight or flight? Do I stay and do I fight this person, or do I disengage and run off? Flight. Both of them can be through the ghadabiyya. And again, this is with us from birth. If a baby is lying in the cot, and the baby hears a loud bang, and it scares the baby, this baby will now, al-quwwatul ghadabiyya, this faculty of aversion, will try and avert this harm, and he will stop to cry. The baby has only one response, because it can't do anything else. So it wants something, it will cry. It wants to avert some harm, it will cry, hoping that somebody will avert that fear. And finally, the third faculty we have is al-quwwatul aqaliyya, the faculty of intellect. This does not exist from birth. This is something that develops over time. And this matures and perfects itself when a person reaches the age of maturity. When a person reaches the age of bulugh, when a person reaches that age. Now, why is this important? Why is it important to understand that our nafs is a construct of these three faculties? The faculty of acquisition, to gain something, the faculty of aversion, to push something away, and the faculty of intellect. Because Iblis can't whisper in your ear. He doesn't speak to you literally. Iblis doesn't put a signpost in front of you saying, do sin. He doesn't give you a little nudge and push you towards sin. And you're stood at the door and you're like, should I go for sin or not? He gives you a push and trips you up and no. Iblis will attempt to use these three faculties to toy with us. If we can learn to control these and bring these into moderation, we understand the games that are going to be played. And this is then a game changer. So now before going further, we have to assess, is the faculty of desires a bad thing? The faculty of acquisition. Is having desires a bad thing? Impulses. Whether it's impulses of hunger, impulses of thirst, or even sexual impulses. Or there is something which is bad. Like, in the faculties of aversion, anger for example, is it a bad thing? Is the faculty of intellect, is it a bad thing? This is where many of us go wrong. This is where moderation comes into play, i'tidal. Desires, impulses, anger, intellect. If they are kept in moderation, then it is extremely healthy and beneficial. Study the entire Quran and Hadith, you will not find a single place where Allah says, delete your desires. Erase your desires. Delete your anger. Erase your anger. Not in one place will you find this. Not a single place. If the anger is of an abnormal level of intensity, let's think about this. If you have too much anger, then you might take it out on your parents. You might take it out on your children unnecessarily. You might take it out on your teachers and elders. You might take it out on the wrong person. That's what the word asaf means. Asaf comes from regret, and it's a type of anger where you take something out which is pressurizing you from somewhere else, and you take it out into somebody else. And so if there's too much anger, you're going to go wrong somewhere. If there's too little anger, what? Anger is a good thing? How? If you have too little anger, I always use the same example. Somebody breaks into your house, what are you going to say? Brother, let me help you. Here, I'll help you carry it. What do you want? Did you come for the TV? Let me take it off the wall mountain. If you have no anger, then you'll watch everything go by and you'll be like, by the way, the money I keep, the code, my bank card is in here, the code is in, you just watch it take place. Allah doesn't say get rid of your anger. Allah wants you to bring it into moderation. There are times where you need to use it, and there are times where you need to refrain. Desires. If there is an abnormality in the desires, if there's a high level of desires, whether it's for food, whether it's for money, whether it's sexual gratification, if a person has too much, a person will seek the fulfillment of those desires. Impermissible means they'll indulge in haram food, they'll steal from somebody because I want this. He's got such a nice pen. I want this pen. Who uses pens today? Actually, it's mobile. He's got such a nice mobile. Yeah, let me take this mobile. I'm stealing. He's got this that I like. Let me steal it. I don't care because I want to acquire something. I'm not interested. If a person has it in unhealthy, excesses, then they'll fraud somebody. They'll involve themselves in promiscuous relationships because it's too much desire, too little desire. If you curb your desire too much, saying, I have no desires, that's it, I'm just going to sit on Allah, no desires. How is that person going to fulfill the desires of their partner? It comes in a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, authentic hadith, and a person fulfilling the marital relations and having intercourse and having sex with the partner, that is an act of sadaqah. And this is why there was one of the teachers, one of the shuyukh, he has a really interesting story, that he had a class, and he was late to the class. The student asked him that, you came late to the class. So he goes, I was engaged in an act of sadaqah, That's why I came late. And it was a class of time of Fajr. And so because he was delayed in the morning time, because I was engaged in an act of sadaqah, and I had to take ghusl afterwards, I had to take the ritual bath, that's why I came late. The teachers were open about this. Why? What were they trying to teach? It's an act of sadaqah. You should do it, and you should have the confidence to say that this is an act of sadaqah. I'm being rewarded for this. Somebody who says, I have no desires and this and that, that's not part of the Sharia. That's not part of the Sharia. Look, there were companions who came to the Prophet ﷺ, and they said to the Prophet ﷺ, O Prophet of Allah, I from today will never ever eat during the day. I'll fast every single day. Another came to the Prophet ﷺ and said, O Prophet of Allah, every single night I will spend in the tahajjud, qiyamul layl. I perform salah all night long. I'm not going to go to the bed. And so the companions came with statements like this. Imagine my student said this to me, and your student said this to you, and your child said this to you. You'd be like, MashaAllah, very good, fasting every single day. Look how pious this is. But my Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, no, I fast some days and I eat some days. The Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, I spend time in the night sleeping and I also perform salah. What do we learn? I'tidal. We are ummatan wasata. We are a nation of moderation. We should be individuals who find the balance. Similarly with the faculty of intellect. If a person is overly reliant on their intellect, and remember, our intellect is limited, our understanding is limited. There's the very nice phrase that I've heard again and again, that Allah has given us a small pixel. Allah Himself has the picture. So we think we know, we're smashing it, we've got all the brains and everything, we know exactly what we're doing, but when you zoom out, you realize, oh, I wasn't that smart. I don't have that much intellect as I thought I did. It's actually quite limited. And so if I'm focused entirely and everything is dependent on my intellect, like, do we agree that the intellect isn't the absolute source of knowledge? I'll give you an example. If I sit somebody here blindfolded, blindfolded, and I make somebody walk into this room, and I say to the person who's blindfolded, tell me what color the jumper is the person is wearing. Can he use his intellect and work it out? Maybe he might, other signs, if I give clues, he might be able to work it out. If I say it's, it's made up of this color or something like that. But if I just say, what color is this person wearing? It's a guessing game. Your intellect is limited. There are things that your senses can do where you can see, where your intellect is limited. And there are levels where your senses can do, your senses can't do something, but the intellect can. For example, if you see smoke in the distance, can you see the fire? Or can you see the smoke? You can see the smoke. So is it your eyes telling you that, is it your senses telling you there's a fire, or is it your intellect telling you there's a fire? Your senses will see the smoke, but your brain will tell you, hey, there must be a fire somewhere. And so there are things that your senses, your five senses, and this is why we as believers, we are not entirely dependent on our five senses and our intellect. We use our five senses, we use our intellect, but we also accept that there is a form of knowledge higher than our intellect and our senses, and that is wahi and revelation. If a person relies entirely, goes too far this way, and focuses entirely on their intellect, and this person will start competing with their intellect with revelation. They'll say, hey, how come Allah says this? Why does Allah say this? Why does Allah want me to do this? How come He doesn't do it like this? And it won't be a question of sincerity wanting to learn. It's like, it should be like this. This is the way it should be. And they'll start placing their mind and their intellect above revelation. And if there's too little intellect, and this person will struggle to function in regard to the most basic concepts of life. You need to use your intellect. If somebody says to you, if you don't use your brain at all, a person is going to struggle. How are you going to get through the world? And so moderation is key. I'll say this again. Islam does not want us to delete and erase our desires. It doesn't want us to delete our anger or our intellect. Islam wants us to put into moderation. Iblis has one job, and that is to push our desires, to push our anger, and to push our intellect. He's literally going to take this like a volume meter, a volume mixer, and he's just going to play with it like this. And he's going to try and take it out of sync. You have your default settings, your fitrah, your nature, and Iblis will come to try and push it out of moderation. So how does a person now work on this? Practical step number one. Now that we understand, practical step number one. We have to work on the feelings and the inclinations that we get to avoid the disobediences of Allah. Let's take a look at specific case scenarios. And I want us to do this really well. So there's no better way to do this than the Quranic way. Let's look at Yusuf alayhi salam, his story. Yusuf alayhi salam had brothers, right? And they were jealous. We know they were jealous. And these brothers had jealousy within them. Every single one of us in this room has experienced jealousy. We felt where somebody has something and we're like, I'm not actually doing anything. Maybe I need to do something. Maybe I need to do this. Maybe I need to do that. And it's not that I want to, there's one level of jealousy which is, this person is doing this. Maybe I should do something as well. Yeah, maybe I should do. One level of jealousy is that's fine, that's good. That's competition. فَاسْتَبِقُوا الْخَيْرَاتِ, you should compete in good things. But another level of jealousy is, this person is doing all of this. I wish he never had any of it. This person has such a nice house. It's not I want a nice house, it's I wish he never had this nice house. It's when you want ill on somebody. So the brothers of Yusuf, they were jealous of him. And they would get comments like, how come dad loves him more than us? It's in the Quran. How come dad loves him more than us? And Yusuf wa akhuhu ahabbu ila abina. Yusuf and his brother are more beloved to. So, and Yaqub alayhi salam, what does he say? He says to Yusuf, listen Yusuf, don't tell anybody about your dream. فَيَكِيدُوا لَكَ كَيْدًا, they will plot against you. I'm going to mention something. I said Quran is beautiful. Understand how beautiful Quran is from this word. Kada, in Arabic, it's where you plot and plan something. But it has a much deeper meaning. Kada in Arabic is actually used when a person is about to vomit. And when you're about to vomit, you have this kind of, the night before you probably had something dodgy to eat. And then you feel it kind of, you feel it uncomfortable, you're uncomfortable in the stomach. And then slowly you feel, I'm not feeling hungry today, I'm feeling this, that. And you feel that kind of, it's moving up. And you get the worst salivation in your mouth, and saliva fills your mouth. And some of you are probably feeling right now like this. And then it comes out suddenly. That's kada. Another word that Arabs use kada for. A woman who's about to go on a menstruation, on her periods, what happens? She will, a week before, a couple of days before, she'll feel her emotions adjusting. She'll feel that chemical imbalance. So it's something brewing inside. Then she will feel maybe some level of contractions. And then suddenly, she'll feel it coming. She'll say, I know I'm coming on. And suddenly it comes out. There's a link in both of them. A few links. Number one, it's something which occurs internally. Nobody else knows about it. Second thing, when it comes out, it's sudden and there's no stopping it. And number three, there's no going back. There's no going back. Yaqub alayhi salam says, فَيَكِيدُوا لَكَ كَيْدًا. Your brothers, they are guiding against you, they're plotting against you. What does it tell you about their plotting? It means that it didn't happen overnight. They didn't wake up one morning and say, how come Dad loves Yusuf so much? Yeah, let's kill him. Yeah, throw him down a well. Boom, done. No. It's gradual. It's guiding. It's festering inside. They had this jealousy within them. So what did? They ignored it. And then it festered, and it boiled, and it bubbled, and it brewed. And then it kept building until it reached the point where, boom, it comes out like vomit. It comes out like menstruation blood. You have no control at this point. Now what's happened, it's irreversible. Now you've thrown him down the well, it's irreversible. Whether you regret it or not, you can't do anything about it. Allah used the word kaid to show you that this is something which was long term. This was brewing for a while. What was the solution for the brothers? It was to go to Dad and say, Dad, how come you love Yusuf more? That's it. Because the father would have said, I don't love Yusuf more. People who, by the way, I've delivered the tafsir of Surah Yusuf, and still every Friday we have our tafsir of Surah Yusuf. We have it live as well. We do like 1 or 2 verses every single week, but we try to go very, very detailed and look at the language, literature kind of devices, but also from a psychology perspective. If you want, I can share the link inshallah afterwards, and inshallah. But what's the solution? The solution was to go to Dad. So I'm saying some people say that Yusuf alayhi salam, he actually, Yaqub alayhi salam liked Yusuf more. I disagree with this. As a prophet, I don't think that was the case. What was the case was, Yusuf was younger. Every parent knows, you don't treat the elder kids the way you treat the little kids. The elder kids, you'll say, can you go to the shop and get this for me? The little kid, you'll say, oh, you play with him. Would you, all this kind of stuff. So you treat them completely differently. You don't imagine going to the adult kid, the one who's grown up, he's in college, and you in front of his friends, like, what are you doing, man? You're embarrassing. That's how it happens. You treat the elder kids different, you treat the younger kids different. So these boys are watching thinking, we're going to do this, and we have to do this, and we have to take care of the animals, and we have to do all of this. And Yusuf's there chilling with Dad, relaxing. Dad goes for a walk, and Yusuf has to go with him. He's playing with Yusuf, and he doesn't even play with us anymore. If they had said, Dad, you don't get this, how come you love Yusuf more? He would have responded. What was Iblis' problem? Iblis had an issue, the angels had an issue. Angels asked Allah. Iblis didn't. It festered. Iblis ended up getting kicked out. The brothers of Yusuf. Yusuf had a problem. What was his problem? Dad, I've seen this dream. He let it fester. Dad, I saw this dream. I need to ask you a question. What's going on? He got his response. Alhamdulillah. The boys had a question. They did what Iblis did. You see how Iblis is using the same tactic that got him kicked out of Jannah. Who's he using it on? The sons of prophets. Understand this. Iblis is operating on the children of prophets and having the same results. Iblis messed up by not asking. So he knows the solution is ask your question, get it answered, and you will solve. So what does he do? He makes it brew within them. And he knows the solution is go to the father. So what does he say? He puts into the mind of these young boys, Dad's lost the plot. Literally I'm translating the verse of the Quran. Inna abana lafi dalalin mubinin. Dad has lost the plot. Inna abana, for sure our father, lafi dalalin mubinin. He's in a clear misguidance. Like he has lost it. He doesn't know what he's doing. The children of a prophet are speaking about the prophet in this way, saying, Dad's lost the plot. Why did Iblis do this? You shut down the source. They can't ask the questions anymore. They can't get answers to their questions. How does Iblis do this? Parents have answers to children. Iblis shuts off that door to the children. It doesn't allow them to connect. And so the children don't go to the parents. They're like, I can't ask my dad. He's old school. He doesn't know what's going on. He closes the door to scholars. Because scholars have responses. That guy, look at him, man. He's like, first self, he performs salah like that. I don't want to be seen with him. I don't want to be like teacher's pet. This is how Shaytan operates. Iblis seals off the solution. And so the number one thing that me and you need to do is we need to spiritually work on ourselves. You will get emotions and inclinations of jealousy. You will get desires. Do not push them down and subdue them. Work on them. Analyze them. It might require a teacher. It might require a spiritual guide. It might require a mentor. It might require a sheikh. It might require whatever. Somebody who will motivate you, somebody who will push you, somebody who in the moment you won't be able to see and you won't be able to think straight. This person in light of the Quran and Sunnah, using the life of the prophets, will be able to say, this is the best course of action. This is what you need to do. Step number one is we understand we have these desires. When you get that impulse, don't just ignore it. When you feel jealous about somebody, put your head down and think, you know what, I feel jealous about this person. What is this? And you learn, the scholars will teach you techniques. What does it mean when I'm jealous? I'm in essence saying, why did Allah give this person, why did Allah not give to me? I'm questioning Allah's decision. And Allah, why did you give to him and not to me? Really? That's what I want to feel by jealousy? And with your jealousy, you'll end up you'll say things, I mentioned to you guys, the majority of issues come from the jinn or from the humans? Come from the jinn or the humans? Humans. It's humans that cause the majority of the issues. It's because we don't assess ourselves in this manner. And we get these inclinations and impulses. The first practical step is when you feel an impulse, don't take it as a joke. Assess it. And this is one of the lessons Allah teaches in the Quran. Me and you are not so far off from Yusuf alayhi salam's brothers. These are children of a prophet who went to a stage where they are about to kill their brother and literally throw him down the well, and that's what they did. You're not that different. Me and you can reach that very quickly, and very quickly by tomorrow we could be at that stage. If we allow jealousy, if we allow desires, somebody else involved in promiscuous relationships, somebody's involved in an affair or something and we read about it, we see about it, that could be me and you tomorrow. If we don't assess and we don't take those desires seriously, and we say, I need to find a solution, I need to work on this, that could be me and you tomorrow. And it might start with something small, and it starts with small steps, and it becomes something huge. This is what Allah wants us to learn. Allah gives us these case studies in the Quran to show you that, listen, nobody is free from this. Doesn't matter if it's the guy sat here talking. It doesn't matter if it's you sat there making notes. It doesn't matter if it's the child of a prophet. It doesn't matter who it is. Shaytan and Iblis will work on these three faculties. And they will push us. The first thing me and you need to do is ensure that when this happens, we have somebody. Either we can directly engage with the Quran and Hadith, or we have somebody who can lead us there. Somebody who can push in that direction. Second thing that we can do. Be wary of the company that you keep. Be wary of the company that you keep. Back to the story of Yusuf. The wife of the politician in his home, the one that everybody knows as Zulaykha. The wife of this politician, she tries to seduce Yusuf alayhi salam, right? Allah mentions inside the verse, وَلَقَدْ هَمَّتْ بِهِ وَهَمَّ بِهَا. She had desires for Yusuf, and Yusuf alayhi salam also had desires for her. It's a prophet, and he has this natural inclination. وَلَقَدْ هَمَّ بِهَا. He desired her, he had inclinations for her, but what did Yusuf do? He resisted company. Always comes late, consistent. Doesn't even know I'm talking to. Always late. MashaAllah. Lecture at the university, he walked in later. Lecture here, he came like this. He's never going to come. So, Yusuf alayhi salam. So, what was I saying? Yes, the woman, she tried to seduce. What does Yusuf alayhi salam do? He had desires. He avoided in every which way to not be in a compromising position with her. And we find this from the verses of the Quran as we studied. Any opportunity that came, to the extent that he stood in front of her. He stood in front of this woman, and she's saying, do this, and do that, and do this, haytala, and he doesn't even talk to her. Every comment he says, in his next 3 comments, he says, Ma'ad Allah, the protection of Allah. He doesn't say, I seek the protection of Allah. He doesn't say, you seek. He just says, Ma'ad Allah. I need the protection of Allah. Innahu Rabbi ahsana mathwaya. That's my Lord. He's the one who helped me. My Lord gives me this place to stay. My Lord gives me all of this. Innahu Rabbi ahsana mathwaya. He took care of me. I can't do something. He doesn't say to her, listen, I can't do it. The master of this house gave me somewhere to stay. My Lord gave me somewhere to stay. He doesn't even address her. He doesn't even look at her. He says, Ma'adullah, innahu Rabbi, that's my Lord. Ahsana mathwaya, he gave me a beautiful place to stay. Innahu la yuflihu al-zalimun. Allah does not give success to that individual who tries to do wrong. You're trying to get something out of sin. Allah won't give you the happiness that you want out of it. He doesn't even address her. When somebody slides into the DMs, when the opportunity for sin comes, you're sat with somebody and there's backbiting taking place. You're sat with somebody, what will Shaytan do? He won't allow you to disengage from it. The first thing that Yusuf alayhi salam did was, I am not even going to engage with you. I am not even going to look at, I'm not even speaking to you. I'm speaking to Allah and I'm speaking to myself. I don't even need you. You don't need to respond to that DM and say, I'm sorry, I'm taken. You can just ignore it. You can block. You can leave them unread. You can do all of these things. You don't have to do that. This is what Allah is teaching us. So the second thing is your company. And Allah tells us this in the Quran, that if you want to do good, you have to spend time in the company of the good people. Allah says, وَاصْبِرْ نَفْسَكَ إِصْبِرْ نَفْسَكَ. Meaning, Allah is saying, hold firm to patience. What does this mean, hold firm to patience? Like, be patient, be patient. What does patience mean? Allah says that about patience. Patience, the scholars, Imam Nawawi and the scholars, most of you will have heard of this. Patience is of 3 types. Patience on good things. For me to perform salah, it's not easy. I need to have patience. I need to put some effort in. Waking up, doing wudu at the right time. I'm doing something, I want to enjoy that. But salah is salah. Patience. So patience comes when you need to do good. The second type of patience is to refrain from evil. So opportunity for sin comes, I have to hold firm. I have to be patient. I have to endure. No, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to. For the sake of Allah, my Allah is watching me with so much love, with so much compassion. He knows the desire I have right now. I will resist for His sake. Imagine how close we go to Allah with this approach. And the third form of patience, ala al-masa'ib. Some difficulties come in your life. You don't control them. You have a beautiful child. 6 months later, this child passes away. You had no control over that. But now you need to hold firm. Patience. There's patience upon the good deeds, patience upon evil, patience upon masa'ib. What will make this easy? Allah speaks to the Prophet ﷺ. He says, Wasbir, O Muhammad, be patient. But if I say to you, be patient, you know I'm speaking to you. Allah says, Nafsaka, yourself. And you yourself need to hold firm to patience. Huge emphasis. How? O Muhammad, even you have to apply this. Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. مَعَ الَّذِينَ يَدْعُونَ رَبَّهُمْ بِالْغَدَاةِ وَالْعَشِيِّ. Spend time in the company of those who call upon their Lord morning and evening. Those who perform their Fajr Salah, بالغدو, بالغداة, والعشي, their Maghrib and Isha Salah. Those people who are connected to Allah, those people who remember Allah, يُرِيدُونَ وَجْهَ, and they want the pleasure of Allah. Sincerity. 2 things when you're seeking good company, when you're seeking good scholars. Number 1, look for somebody who is on the Sunnah. Somebody who يدعون ربهم بالغداة والعشي, they are calling out to Allah in the way Allah says. Allah wants you to do Fajr, Maghrib, Isha, Dhuhr and Asr, inclusive. But as an example, Allah stipulated these, so they are following Allah. I want to perform Maghrib Salah with 4 rak'at. No, Allah said 3, khalas. Doesn't matter if I want to do more, according to Sunnah. Number 2, sincerity. Yuriduna wajha. They don't want your money. They don't want that. They don't want this. They don't want that. Obviously, charities are different. They want your money to do good. But I'm telling you, yuriduna wajha. I'll get blacklisted. Yuriduna wajha. They want the pleasure of Allah. They desire the pleasure of Allah. That's it. That's what they want. Those are the kind of people you have to find. Allah says, وَلَا تَعْدُ عَيْنَاكَ عَنْهُمْ. Don't overlook these types of people. Don't think these are insignificant people. The people who have these qualities, and by the way, don't get it wrong. Allah doesn't say you have to spend time in this ulama's company, this scholars company, this mufti's company, this qadi's company. The company of those people who do good for this with sincerity. It could be normal people, could be your normal friends, could be somebody you don't know, could be that guy in the first self who nobody knows about, could be that person who helps out the charity and nobody cares about, nobody looks at, and he's there kind of, and nobody even gives a smile at that person. And they come to the scholar and they're like, both smiles and this and that. And that guy is like, yeah, وَلَا تَعْدُ عَيْنَاكَ عَنْهُمْ. Allah says, what will distract you from the company of these people? تُرِيدُ زِينَةَ الْحَيَاةِ الدُّنْيَا. The life of this world. Dunya has 2 implications. Dunya comes from dana yadnu, something which is close. And dunya can also have the meaning, Sharif, you're hearing this for the second time. And dunya also has the implications of something insignificant. Something which is close. This world is close to us. In comparison to akhirah, آخر أخرى, afterwards. آخر means second, afterwards. And dunya means something which is close to us, something which we're living. Dunya also means adna, insignificant. Adna, dunya comes from that, something which is insignificant. Allah says this insignificant world is what will distract you. You want to go to that lecture, but this is the only time I get to chill. This is I've been all day, I've been working, and then the kids, I've managed to get the kids away as well, and now I get to chill, and now you want me to go to a lecture? Oh, you couldn't pay now. Spending time in the company of those. I'm not saying every waking moment. I'm saying fix yourself. Every week I will attend this lecture. Every week I will attend the company of this person. Every week I will assess myself. And if there's something wrong, I will contact a local scholar, a local imam, anybody, somebody who can help me in me becoming a better person. And what does Allah say? That this person, وَلَا تُطِعْ مَنْ أَغْفَلْنَا قَلْبَهُ عَنْ ذِكْرِنَا. If you do not spend time in the company of the good, you will end up in the company of bad. وَلَا تُطِعْ. Do not follow. أَطَاعَ يُطِيعُ, to follow. مَنْ أَغْفَلْنَا قَلْبَهُ, the one who we have made his heart negligent, عَنْ ذِكْرِنَا, from our remembrance. There's a discussion, what does it mean Allah made somebody's heart negligent? How is it that person's fault? Ask me at the end if you remember. We'll discuss that. It's not the focus here. وَاتَّبَعَ هَوَاهُ, and they follow their hawa, the desires. Look, listen to this. Hawa in Arabic is the word used for wind. Wind is sometimes intense, it's gentle, it's going from right to left, forward, backwards, all of this. Your desires are exactly the same. One day it's this way, one day it's that way, it's all over the place. وَاتَّبَعَ هَوَاهُ, they follow their desires. Hawa is also a word you can use for all the different ideologies that exist in the world today. All the different isms, morality. Today I feel like doing this, tomorrow I feel like doing this, today this is okay, today that's not okay, legislation goes this way, legislation goes that way. Every person's morality, it's like Hawa, it's one day this way, one day this way. This is legal, this is illegal, this is okay, that's not okay. And so you're taking a bit from here, and taking a bit from here, and I take the good from here, and the good from there, and the good from there, but that changes all the time. There is one way that gives you the perfect way, and that's Islam. That's the Sharia. وَاتَّبَعَ هَوَاهُ, they follow their desires. وَكَانَ أَمْرُهُ فُرُطًا. And so the second thing that we need to do is fix the company. الْمَرْءُ عَلَى دِينِ خَلِيلِهِ. An individual is on the lifestyle of their friends. The people that you surround yourself. Khalil is somebody who's a close friend. The people who you engage with on a day-to-day basis. And by the way, that might not even be physical interactions. And the people you're interacting with online. You might have a Facebook feed, you might have an Instagram feed, you might have all of these different feeds. The things that you are consuming, that is your company. That is the impact, that is the effect that is taken. الْمَرْءُ عَلَى دِينِ خَلِيلِهِ. So a person who is sincere and genuine, work on that company. Work on that company. And if there is something that's distracting you, if there is something that's taking you away from Allah, may Allah allow me, may Allah allow you to do this. If something is taking you away from Allah, cut that thing out of your life. And this is what taqwa is. I'm on a tangent. I'm conscious of the time. 5:30 finished. Is it 5:30 finished? Meaning everything, Q&A, everything? Yeah, inshallah. inshallah. I'll keep it inside. Because I want to mention some of the key things that will help us, inshallah. What is taqwa? We always say this is taqwa, this is taqwa, that is taqwa. What actually is taqwa? Taqwa is the effort that you take to prevent sin. That's it. And let me explain it. The word taqwa comes from waqa yaqi wiqayatan. Wiqayatan is another word used for shield. So when you put a shield in front of you. In battle, is a shield going to protect you 100%? No, it's not. It might protect you, it might not protect you. What's your job? To put the shield in front of you. You have to take practical steps. When every night we go to sleep and say, tomorrow is going to be a better day. Tomorrow I'm going to be a better Muslim. Tomorrow I'm going to do this. We don't set any practical steps. How do you expect to be a better Muslim? You wake up tomorrow and you've forgotten. And then you'll go to sleep another night. Tonight this is the night that I change. Tomorrow I'm going to be a different Muslim. 5 times salah, this time. Tomorrow it's going to happen. You didn't set any practical steps. Come tomorrow, it's the same thing. A few months later, a few weeks later, wallah, that's tomorrow, that's the one, that's tomorrow. If I sin, I'm going to put 10 pounds in charge, I want to do this, I want to do that. Or come the next day. We don't set practical steps. Taqwa is to put the shield. The only thing in taqwa is take practical steps. Don't think about becoming pious. Don't think about becoming religious. Don't think about becoming this guy who floats when he performs salah on the musalla, your musalla starts floating. All that stuff, forget all of that. Focus on practical steps. What am I going to do from today? What am I going to do from now? How is that become easier? Step number 1. You're looking inside your illnesses, your faults. I've got this issue. I've got jealousy. I need to do something about it. Consult somebody, a book, a scholar. I have this quality that I want to remove in the next 3 weeks, in the next 4 weeks, in the next month, in the next year. I don't want this quality in my life. What practical steps do I do? You now have practical steps. You're changing. Shaytan allows you to say, tomorrow I'll change. But there will come a day when that tomorrow won't come. And that will happen. And that's happened to every single person, but that tomorrow won't eventually come. A person takes the practical steps. So that's the first. Second thing, company. Sort out the company. Start doing what taqwa requires of us. Stop thinking of taqwa as this far-off thing where you're this next-level person and knowledge flows from you and people just come to you and they look at you and they accept Islam. That's not what taqwa is. Taqwa is you're just trying. And with taqwa, I'll give you another tool, tawbah. You're going to mess up, you're going to slip up, make tawbah. Make tawbah, you mess up, you make tawbah. Adam alayhi salam is in Jannah and he's told, don't go near this tree. So he tries his best, he's doing taqwa. He messes up. As soon as he messes up, what does he do? Tawbah. Tawbah brings him not only to the level of taqwa, it takes him to the level of prophethood. Understand that. He wasn't a prophet in Jannah. But he makes a mistake, makes tawbah. Tawbah is so powerful, it doesn't just bring you up a level, it takes you advance the level. Why? Say this is the amount of good you have. You make it your spirituality. A person sins, they go down in spirituality. When you make tawbah, Allah recuperates that. But tawbah is a good deed as well. Allah gives you more. And so through tawbah, you're not only kind of coming back to where you were, you're advancing in your spiritual development and your spiritual resistance. We see that. Adam alayhi salam is here in Jannah. He makes a mistake, comes down to here, makes tawbah, comes to the level of Prophet. Subhanallah. Like, how amazing is that? And so taqwa and tawbah, that was a side point. But again, we're talking about shaytan. Before we come to jinns and possession and this and black magic, all of that, start with me and you. There is a battle that we are having with shaytan that we don't address. We address all of the other things. Address the practical steps that I need to take. That's the first thing. And so those are the 2 things. Number 3, and this will be the final of the practical steps that I will give. Because there's a lot. Scholars mention loads. But I'm trying to kind of give you the ones that you can start with and you can start applying. Number 3, start engaging meaningfully with the Quran. This is very important. I didn't say read the Quran. I didn't say just pray the Quran. I didn't say memorize the Quran. Start engaging meaningfully with the Quran. The Quran is filled with stories and narratives. Why? It's not a storybook. It's giving you case scenarios. There was a person who did this. There was a prophet who did this. And this person made this mistake. And that person made this mistake. And that person tripped up here. And how did they get from point A to point B? But there's another person like Fir'aun who messed up. And Namrud who messed up. Then these people messed up. Avoid these mistakes. Allah gives us these case studies to see where people tripped up and how Iblis tripped them up by using these faculties. We saw with the brothers that he's pushing that jealousy. It's the faculty of ghadabiyya, meaning we need aversion. We want the love of our father. And the person who's getting in the way of that love is Yusuf. So if we get rid of Yusuf, problem solved. So they go after Yusuf. Does it solve the problem, or does that go into further depression? And it makes things worse. It's the complete opposite. Because we're going after our desires. We're trying to make things work according to that. So I would advise every single one of us here, start studying the Quran meaningfully. If you are not enrolled into an Arabic course, enroll yourself into an Arabic course. Now, of course, some of us are part-time, some of us are working, some of us have commitments. So try and find a course that works for you. Inshallah, I'll be starting we'll be starting an Arabic course from September this year, which will be online. I'm only saying this because you may want to engage with that. But I'm not saying come to me. Any Arabic course that takes you to the Quran, that leads you to the Quran, whether it's personal, whether it's private, one-on-one, whether it's with an organization, whatever it is, find something which will allow you to engage meaningfully with the Quran. As you're seeing from the words of the Quran, how powerful the Quran is in its interactions. Find something and allow. If you have nothing at all, and you still need to learn to read the Quran in Arabic, start with that as well. Come see me at the end and ask me. Say, I don't know how to read Quran, what can I do? What options are there available? And I'll see if I can help you. I'll see if I can direct you somewhere. But you have to ask. You have to ask somebody, say, and you start engaging. If you have no form of engagement at all, start with a translation of the Quran. So now turn to somebody and say, there's 200 translations of the Quran, where do I start? I'm comfortable in this language, which one do I start with? And so we have to start asking questions. The thing that held Shaytan back, the thing that held the children of Yaqub back, they did not ask. Learn to ask. Learn to ask. And this is one of the strongest tools we have to protect ourselves and to push against the temptations and the ploys of Iblis, to educate ourselves, to connect with the Quran. The scholars have a saying, it's not a prophetic narration, the scholars have a saying, فَقِيهٌ وَاحِدٌ أَشَدُّ عَلَى الشَّيْطَانِ مِنْ أَلْفِ عَابِدٍ. That 1,000 worshippers are easier on Shaytan than one learned person. Because a learned person knows Shaytan will try this, Shaytan will try that. And so those are 3 practical steps. Now, what were the quick summary? Number 1, keep an eye on your spiritual progress. Hold yourself accountable if you feel yourself slipping. Number 2, and by the way, I'll finish this first. Number 2, fix your company. Find somebody who can push you in the right direction, consult with them, engage with them. And number 3, empower yourself with the ability to engage and benefit from the word of Allah directly. Right? Now, the tangent. When Yusuf alayhi salam says the dream to his father, does the father say, watch out for the jinn? Or does he say, watch out for your brothers? Sometimes the issues start at home. And Yaqub alayhi salam teaches us sensitive conversations are sometimes needed to be had with your children. Sometimes it's a family member who might be a problem. There might be a family member who's causing issues. There might be a family member who is somewhat kind of, has some animosity towards us. The Quran doesn't say to bury the issue. The Quran doesn't say to say, no, that's our uncle, or that's our brother, or that's our this, we don't think. Yaqub alayhi salam, the Prophet said, don't tell this dream to your brothers. And he tells them, but then he also says at the end of that sentence, Shaytan is an enemy to everybody. Sometimes you have to have sensitive conversations with your children. You have to say, look, this family member of ours, they don't have the best interest of your heart. You should be respectful to them. If they give salam, you give salam back. You hold the door open for them, you show respect, but you keep your distance in other matters. And these are serious conversations you have to have with children, with family members. Right? Which brings us on now to the final stage, which is the spiritual solutions. The spiritual solutions. What are the spiritual solutions that a person can have? Number 1, when you feel yourself in a moment of temptation, because it's about Shaytan, right? This is not technically about jinn yet. That's the other session that's going to come. About Shaytan. Shaytan's coming and tempting me. So what does Allah say? وَإِمَّا يَنْزَغَنَّكَ When Shaytan comes, when Shaytan comes and tempts you, نَزْغُ فَاسْتَعِذْ بِاللَّهِ Seek the protection of Allah. أَعُوذُ بِاللَّهِ مِنَ الشَّيْطَانِ الرَّجِيمِ. And I always say, don't just say the phrases in Arabic without knowing what they mean. Know what they mean. Engage with them in a meaningful manner. When you sit down to eat and you say Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, and you stand up from eating and say Alhamdulillah alladhi at'amana, and you go leave the time and say Ghufranak Alhamdulillah alladhi adhaba anni al-ala. All of these du'as that you read, learn the meanings of them. Engage with them in a meaningful manner. When you say A'udhu billahi minash shaytanir rajim, Allah's on my side. I'm seeking protection in Allah. Who's going to push me to sin? You start thinking. Think about these words. Number 2, spiritual. So number 1, isti'adha. A'udhu billahi minash shaytanir rajim. Number 2, hadith of Tirmidhi. The Prophet ﷺ said, say, قُلْ هُوَ اللَّهُ أَحَدْ وَالْمُعَوَّذَتَيْنِ حِينَ تُمْسِي وَتُصْبِحْ ثَلَاثَ مَرَّاتٍ تَكْفِيكَ مِنْ كُلِّ شَيْءٍ. Every morning and evening, Surah Al-Ikhlas, قُلْ هُوَ اللَّهُ أَحَدْ, Surah Al-Falaq, قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ الْفَلَقِ, Surah Al-Nas, قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ النَّاسِ. Morning and evening, 3 times. How long will it take you? All you have to do is set a timetable. Fix it. Say to yourself, I wake up in the morning, will I leave the house without brushing my teeth? Will I leave the house without doing this, without doing that, without doing that? I will, once I'm in the car, once I'm walking to the car, from my house to the car, it's a 1-minute walk. In that time, I will do my Surah Ikhlas, Surah Falaq, Surah Nas. No matter what is going on, I will do my قُلْ هُوَ اللَّهُ أَحَدْ قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ الْفَلَقِ قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ النَّاسِ 3 times. And in the evening, I'm coming back, I'm walking from the car to the house, that's when I'm doing it. Fix yourself times. This is the only way you can do it if you fix time. I'm going to go for the Dhuhr, I'm going to go for Asr, Maghrib. When I go for Maghrib, I'll do this one. When I come back from Fajr, I'll do this one. So that's the hadith of Tirmidhi, Surah Ikhlas, Surah Falaq, Surah Nas. It says, تَكْفِيكَ مِنْ كُلِّ شَيْءٍ. It will suffice you from every single thing. It will protect you from every single thing. You're in the protection of Allah. Number 3, إِذَا أَوَيْتَ إِلَى فِرَاشِكَ. Before you go to sleep, فَقْرَأْ آيَةَ الْكُرْسِي. Read آيَةَ الْكُرْسِي. اللَّهُ لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا هُوَ الْحَيُّ الْقَيُّومُ. This is the one that Shaytan mentioned. Remember in the hadith of Abu Hurairah? Abu Hurairah, I mentioned it earlier. You guys probably, khalas, it's gone already. The hadith of Abu Hurairah, where he went and he was getting the zakah, and then Shaytan was there, and at the end Shaytan said, look, I'll benefit you, I'll tell you something, and please, then you let me go. So this is what Shaytan said, and he said, read ayatul kursi, حتى تختم الآية, the entire thing, until you finish, وَلَا يَقْرَبَنَّكَ شَيْطَانٌ حَتَّى تُصْبِحْ. Allah will put a hafiz, somebody will protect you the entire night, and Shaytan won't come near you until the morning. Hadith of Muslim, next one. Abu Hurairah mentioned that the Prophet said, لَا تَجْعَلُوا بُيُوتَكُمْ مَقَابِرَ. Do not make your homes into graveyards. Do not make them to graves. What does it mean? إِنَّ الشَّيْطَانَ يَنْفِرُ مِنَ الْبَيْتِ الَّذِي تُقْرَأُ فِيهِ سُورَةُ الْبَقَرَةِ. That home wherein the Quran is recited, and specifically Surah Al-Baqarah, Shaytan doesn't come to that home. So here's the advice that I give. Sometimes when we leave our home, what do? We leave the radio running, we leave the TV running, we leave something running, so that if somebody comes outside the house, they hear some noise and think, oh, somebody's inside. So just put Surah Al-Baqarah on YouTube, on loop, and when you leave the house, khalas, leave the Quran reading. That's one thing, but that's not the best way. We recite the Quran in our home, ourselves. We recite the Quran, we engage with the Quran, we act of obedience in our home. That will bring protection into our home. And I'm not just talking protection, I wish I had time. I'm really conscious of the time for questions. It will bring barakah in your home, it will bring blessings in your home, your children, your family, everything. You will see the blessings instantly. Become family members when you are engaging with the Quran in the home. Another hadith of Muslim, that's the next thing. Recite the Quran, Surah Al-Baqarah. That doesn't mean you sit down and in one go you have to read Baqarah from start to finish. Small amounts, gradual. 1 side a day, 2 sides a day, whatever amount you can read of the Quran, it benefits. And the final hadith of Muslim, Jabir radiallahu anhu says, إِنَّ الشَّيْطَانِ إِذَا سَمِعَ النِّدَاءِ بِالصَّلَاةِ. When Shaytan hears the adhan, ذَهَبَ, he leaves that area حَتَّى يَكُونَ مَكَانَ الرَّوْحَةِ, and he sprints off in a direction until he reaches مَكَانَ الرَّوْحَةِ, a distant place. He flees from the adhan. Have in your home, try and get some sort of a receiver, some sort of a thingy that transmits the adhan every single day in your home, and the blessings of the adhan are within the home. And so that's one of the ways. Other practical steps: when you enter the home, enter with salam. When you're eating and drinking, say Bismillah. They can't partake from the food, etc. These are some practical steps which, and like I said, all the discussions on jinn-related stuff, all of that kind of stuff, jinn possession, all of that kind of stuff, that's much more in the next series, inshallah. And this was to do with Shaytan. For us to understand Shaytan, and this one will give you a good foundation for the next series, which is to do with the jinn, which we then go into a lot of these other discussions, inshallah, that would come. That actually concludes the That actually concludes the discussions regarding Shaytan and all of these things. Before we go into the Q&A,
Jazakallah khairan, Mufti. Very beneficial. I'm sure we've all taken things. And I'm sure Mufti could have carried on as well. I can see we kind of reached it towards the end. there's so many things to kind of include and cover as well. And we do encourage that you try to attend the next series following on the Jinn series, inshallah. I think we're opening up for questions now. So if brothers and sisters have any questions, sisters, you can write down on a piece of paper. We can get one of the volunteers to bring it to the front. If the brothers have any questions, they'd like to ask Mufti.
Sometimes people are embarrassed to ask questions. If you're embarrassed to ask questions, you can even text it. We have a number, mobile, specifically for questions, for updates, for engagements, or anything like that. So if all of you take your mobiles out, and at least take this number down. So if future you have a question, or you want an update, or you want one of the lectures, something like that, or you can send a question through onto this. So I'll give you the number now, inshallah. 07, it's WhatsApp, so just send me a WhatsApp number, 07-587-162-987. I'll say it again, just in case you're taking the phone out. 07-587-162-987. One last chance for those who are really slow. 07-587-162-987. So you can send your questions there, if you want. You can shout them out, you can ask them on the sister side, on the men's side. There's a question over there.
If Shaytan is our enemy, what was the benefit of teaching how to put it? And the answer to that.
Say that again.
If Shaytan is our enemy, is there like a reason to why he...
Okay, so very good, very good. So the question is in this hadith, if Shaytan is an enemy of an individual, then why in this hadith of Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu is he teaching Ayatul Kursi? Here's a few things. The scholars have mentioned. Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani, in his sharh of this hadith, he's a great scholar. It's the hadith of Bukhari. He explains a number of things. The first thing he says is this: when the Shaytan and the jinn are caught up in human form, they don't have the strength and the abilities that they have in their jinn form. I'll give you an example. In the story of Sulaiman alayhi salatu wasalam, the Ifrit, one of the jinn says that, you know what, Sulaiman, I will go and get the throne of Bilqis before you even blink. And the strength and the speed and the effort that requires, that when they are in human form, they are restricted. Now, we are not told whether it was Iblis or just a generic Shaytan. So this Shaytan who has been now caught, he doesn't have the strength. The changing into the form, what that requires, etc. So Ibn Hajar says he was stuck in this form until he was able to get out and change. So now he's in this panicking thinking that if I get taken to the Prophet ﷺ, who knows what might happen? The other devils who would come to the Prophet ﷺ, they'd change and they'd accept Islam. He's panicking now, what might happen to me? So he says, look, I'll even help you, even though it's at my detriment. I will help you and tell you that you realize the Kursi in the night and then you say it. Does that answer the question, inshallah? So the hadith is in Bukhari and it's explained by Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani in his book Fathul Bari. Any other questions, inshallah? Good question, man. Very good question. Question?
Sort of like, do you have any sort of engagement with social media, Telegram or do you have further updates or advice, things like that?
Say that again?
Do you have any sort of engagement like Telegram or say what kind of updates or anything like that?
Oh, from here. So that number that I sent you, I will send all updates there. A lot of the live streams are shared on there as well. So all our lectures that we do, the live streams, etc. On Twitter, you can follow the Zidna Foundation. Just type in my name, like Amir Isap. I think it's here somewhere. You've probably got a poster or something like that. Just type in my name and say that, can you add us to a broadcast or an update list or something like that. And inshallah, like that's the key thing. Like these lectures that we're doing with open knowledge. One of the objectives is that there's two benefits. There's the benefit that you guys come, you benefit, you learn something. On top of that, there's people across the globe who you're impacting without realizing. And this is, by the way, a huge benefit that people didn't have in the times of Sahaba, etc. The Sahaba were limited to the charity that they could give. You see a person in the street, you give it to them. The work that's conducted by charities for us is we give them a fiver, something insignificant to us, but how that impacts somebody across the globe and changes their life. And I come on the Day of Judgment and Allah's like, you help the person in this country and in this country and in this country. I didn't even go to half of these countries. But because of your the donations that you gave, that benefit. So if that number, I'll say it one last time because you asked about it. 07587-162-987. Just drop a WhatsApp message or a text. Just say like join or anything random like that, and then we'll add you. Salam.
Yes, my question, because I was busy running around, I just want to reaffirm this, what I've understood. Shaytan doesn't mean all jinns. Within the jinns, there are good jinns and there are bad jinns. So the one who is a shaitan are people within the mankind who are trying to deceive us, to take us in a bad path, and amongst the jinn. Is that, would you?
Yeah, so let me explain this. This is one thing I would say to answer that question. When you hear the word shaitan, there is a technical term which is referred to Iblis, the main guy. Right? So when you say shaitan, Allah will sometimes use in the Quran, referring to the main guy, the devil, Iblis, that main guy. But the actual, when it's used in other places in the Quran, understand it like this. You have human beings, you have jinn, two creations. You have good humans, you have bad humans. You have good jinn, you have bad jinn. The good humans are known as humans. The good jinn are known as jinn. The evil humans and the evil jinn are known as shaitan. Does that make sense? So shaitan comes from the word shatana. Shatana is somebody who leads astray, or somebody who is distanced, somebody who's trying to take you away from Allah. And so shaitan is anybody, human or non-human, that's taken you away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so if you want a quick summary, you have jinn. Amongst the jinn you have the bad jinn, and those jinn are known as shaitan, and Iblis is the leader of them. In the Quran, when Allah uses shaitan, He will use it interchangeably. It's referring to Iblis, the one guy, but it can be anybody. That's why in the hadith that is mentioned, and we say that it was shaitan that gave us the Allahu la ilaha illa huwa al-hayyul qayyum, all of that. Shaitan meaning it could have been any form of a devil. It might not have been Iblis, the main guy himself. Does that make sense? So any other questions? Question?
That Iblis was called Azazil.
There is this discussion regarding Iblis' name, that he was known as Azazil, which comes from, again, a non-Arabic word, which is kind of, I indicated to it, but I didn't go into it much. One of his names originally was Azazil, etc., etc. The thing with that is we don't have any explicit data on that. You know, even regarding Iblis, they used to call him Ta'usul Malaika. In the Tafasir, they say, he was known as like the peacock amongst the angels. Imagine you have a bunch of birds, normal birds, and then you have a peacock. How different does it look? Imagine you have all of these angels and you have Iblis who's made this jinn, this fire, it stand out. So he was also known as Ta'usul Malaika. So these are different names that have been given to him. The Azazil one, I'll be honest with you, I'm not sure where that stems from. I haven't looked into that in detail. I can take a look at it and respond inshallah. So if you, like I said, the benefit of asking a question here or asking me here is that if I don't know the answer, I don't know everything, I don't know a lot of things, I can find the answer inshallah. You see, this is one of the benefits of studying and knowledge, is that you don't have everything. And it empowers you, right? Somebody asks you something, you don't start going defensive and saying, oh, you know, it's probably like a disagreement amongst the scholars. No, you say, listen, I don't know, I'll find out next week for you. I'll ask a scholar, I have access to this, and I'll ask somebody and find out for you. And then you'll find out for yourself, and you'll find out for this individual. So I'll check inshallah the Azazil then, and I'll mention it inshallah. I mean, we studied together, so I'll text you inshallah. Any other questions? Sisters, if you have a question, just shout it out. Let me just see if there's any.
Just take the back first, yeah?
Can the jinn marry human or have children with them?
The question is, can jinn marry humans and have children with them? I'll be honest with you, I have no idea. This isn't something that I'll be honest, like, you see, I'll tell you my perspective. When I put together the content, when I present the content, I will take, because this is about the unseen, right? This is about the unseen. And Allah teaches us the things about the unseen for our guidance. It's relevant to us, it's important to us. Anything Allah omitted, I myself try to avoid. If Allah hasn't told us about interactions between humans and jinn, meaning in terms of marriage, in terms of this, having children, I try to avoid it. Because it's speculative. Somebody might come to me and say, I'm married to a jinn. What am I going to say? How do I affirm, how do I deny it? لا نصدقه ولا نكذبه. So neither will I mock this person and say, don't be ridiculous. Neither will I say it's true. That is the safest approach. Look, I don't have a clue about this. Allahu A'lam. And so, لا نصدقه ولا نكذبه. I'll teach you that principle. Use that more often. Say, look, I can neither, it's like, I can neither affirm nor deny. When you're in court and I can neither confirm nor deny the allegation. So it's like that. Allah protect us. But that's my personal response to this. But I'll be honest with you, I haven't found anything explicit from the Quran, from the Sunnah, from the Salaf, etc. in this regard. And so I really can't comment. And again, it sounds like, I'm not saying it's an absurd question. It is quite a valid question, because there are interactions that they can have. So somebody might say, what if a jinn takes the form of a human being, and then through that form they have relationships, they have marriage, all of this? Allahu A'lam. Allahu A'lam. But it wouldn't impact our guidance in terms of what we need to know at this stage. So it is a valid question, but I don't know the answer to that. I'm just going to read. If you have questions, just shout them out. Okay, there's a question here which I've been requested to not read out, answer. I'll answer this one in private, inshallah.
There's a sister, would you like to?
So, how did the Shaytan get to Jannah if he's a jinn himself? I basically heard that the Shaytan was like a baby on earth and the angels had found him, and that's why they just took him to Jannah and he became like one of the angels. Is this true?
Very good question. Imam Ibn Kathir talks about this. How did Iblis, Shaytan, end up in Jannah in the first place? Or how did he get there in the first place? We talked about him being there, but how did he get there? In Al-Bidayah wa Nihaya, in his book, the beginning to the end, Imam Ibn Kathir talks about this, and he talks about it in some detail. And one of the stories you mentioned, he's indicated to as well, which is that Iblis, one of the stories is that Iblis was a jinn who had nobody to take care of him, and the angels raised him. However, again, that is a very speculative story. We have no explicit data on how Iblis ended up in heaven itself. The scholars mention that we do know that there's a few things I mentioned here. When the Prophet ﷺ was given prophethood, this is quite important, you'll understand here. When the Prophet ﷺ was given prophethood, there's something that took place when the Prophet ﷺ was born. The door to the heavens was sealed. The jinns would interact with the heavens. Not just Iblis, the other jinns had interactions with the heavens. And so they would go, they would listen to what was being said, they would come back down, and they would talk about the fate. So before the Prophet ﷺ, these doors and this access was there. Angels and jinn were interacting in some way. We don't have the details from Allah, but there was interaction. When the Prophet ﷺ was born, that was sealed. Now there's no access. So what we do learn is jinns and angels had a level of mixing interactions prior to the Prophet ﷺ. Now, the next discussion is, that can explain that it's not the case that, it's possible that on the first level of heaven, or when we say heaven, we're talking about the skies, right? Not heaven as such. We're talking about the first skies, the angels and the jinn, they might have had interactions, because we don't know the bodies of the jinn. And by the way, I'm not speculating, I'm saying what the scholars have touched on. I'm putting together a number of the opinions the scholars have presented. So to try and give some sort of an understanding to this, what are the different options that could have happened? So the jinns and angels could have had some interactions in that form, and so Iblis could have been somebody who did good deeds, and so he was elevated, and then he was given this rank to be amongst the elite of the angels. Even the angels have layers and levels, right? We know Jibreel, the archangel, he's at the highest pinnacle of level, and you have the different angels. You have angels who have responsibilities, you have angels who write good deeds, you have angels who are mentioned like Munkar, Nakir, Kiram and Katib, all of these things. And so the interactions with the angels, it seems that they had, I will say, any of the stories that are mentioned, they are again speculative. So if you take the story and you say that, he was Iblis was a little baby and the angels raised him and took him to the heaven, does that impact us in terms of our understanding of Iblis? Or does it not impact us? It doesn't really impact us. It's something to know, and we have curiosity, no problem. But this is something, like I said, I sit here to tell you what we find explicit or what I have found explicit as well. I haven't read everything, so there might be something. But from the prophetic narrations from the Quran, I haven't come across a Genesis story of how Iblis ended up in Jannah. But like I said, it's possible that the scholars do mention it's because of his good deeds and his perpetual good deeds that he was placed in Jannah. But I would go a step further and say Allah put him in Jannah as part of the test. Allah knew all of this was going to happen, so Allah allowed that to happen to make all of these comparisons and all of these things. If it was up to Iblis, he could have chosen what route he went down, and he chose that. And this is why there's a beautiful hadith in Bukhari. Adam alayhi salam and Musa alayhi salam had a debate. When they met in the skies, Musa alayhi salam said, "Are you Adam, the one who, because of which we got kicked out of Jannah?" And so Adam and Musa alayhi salam is a fiery character, you know. If you forget Musa alayhi salam, he's like, there's an individual that there was a fight taking place, and it comes in the Quran. Musa alayhi salam stepped in and kind of pushed one guy to the side. Oh, get out of the way! And he ended up killing him because he must have hit him very hard. And then you hit somebody in the temple or somewhere in the wrong place, you kill somebody. And then obviously he had regret. I didn't mean to do this. I was just trying to stop this fight. So Musa alayhi salam is somebody who had quite a strong temper, right? And this is why when we go to the nations and we go to the prophets and say, help us, help us, help us, Musa would say, I can't help you, I made a mistake in this way. Anyway, the point I was making is Musa alayhi salam, Adam alayhi salam, they had a debate. It's in Bukhari, and Musa speaking, are you the Adam that was kicked out of Jannah? Now when you hear it, you think of it differently, man. It's Musa saying, are you the Adam that was kicked out of Jannah? So Adam alayhi salam says, it was the will of Allah. It was the qadr of Allah. It's what Allah wanted. When the Prophet ﷺ narrated this hadith, he smiled and he said, فَحَجَّ آدَمُ مُوسَى, Adam won the debate. Meaning, whether Adam alayhi salam was in Jannah, whether he wasn't in Jannah, he would have ended up on the earth. It was part of what Allah wanted. So whether Iblis' Genesis story is like this, he was good, he was that, whatever it was, this was going to happen for us to see these things. Any other questions? I go off on tangents, that's why I have script in front of me. As you can see in the questions, I go all over the place, so that's why a script is good. Question?
We'll take one last question. Go ahead, Robert.
What is the difference of between whether Shaytan is an angel if Allah already explains that he's from the jinn?
A very good question. Why is there a difference of opinion if Shaytan, Iblis, is an angel or if he's a jinn? There is a categorization and discussion among scholars which I left out. Amongst the jinn, are there certain jinn who are what is known as fallen angels? It's a very minority opinion. And this goes towards somewhat, this is a belief that is held in some of the biblical scriptures as well. And so like a fallen angel type of thing. And so scholars have that discussion, which is a weak opinion. Scholars also have the discussion, first of all, that verse, Allah says that they all prostrated except for Iblis. So they say that maybe there is a group from amongst the jinn who are angels. And so they like there's an overlap. Right? So like 50-50 angel, 50-50 jinn. And again, this is them trying to understand the verses. I left all of that out because that pushes towards advanced discussions. And this actually comes more into Aqidah studies. So for example, the Mu'tazilites and these guys, they would say that no, we need to rationally explain this. So they'll try and rationally explain it, they'll use a bit of this and a bit of that. So that opinion does exist, that he was he an angel, but what do they mean by an angel? Do they mean was he an angel in terms of character and actions? Was he an angel in terms of that there were certain jinns who were raised living with the angels? Does that make sense? So then, Ibn Abbas, etc., they may not even say that he was actually an angel. They would say he was at the level of angels, meaning he was amongst the angels, etc. So I did somewhat nuanced discussion. I didn't go into much detail, but there is a bit more detail that comes within it. Imam Qurtubi, I know there's a tafsir Qurtubi translation, so Imam Qurtubi touches on this. So if you search some of these verses there, you'll find it in Imam Qurtubi discussion. Ibn Kathir touches on it, he takes the angel approach as well, the classical approach as well, there's a translation of Ibn Kathir as well, so you'll find some of these discussions there, inshallah. I'll give a last chance for questions. He said no more, I'm going to say one last chance. Any questions? Oh wait, one second, let me just in case somebody sent it and said
While Mufti is checking, we've got Mufti's number up down the background, so please do take it down and make use of this. If you have any questions, you can message him just privately. That's not a problem. Is there anything?
That's all from my side. Jazakallah for attending. Jazakallah for you guys for hosting it and everything. If you have any questions, I'll still be around, inshallah. Notes, share with me your notes on this number or on Twitter or somewhere. I want to see your notes, inshallah. I'm comparing student notes now to see, because I prepared the lecture, I want to see what you thought was important, what you thought was not important. So take pictures of your notes or send a PDF or something like that, and inshallah, I'll get to that as well. SubhanAllah. Alhamdulillah.
Jazakallah.